Chapter 616. After talking with Lord Daoist Jinghe for a while, Wanhe Tower sent them a message asking them to go. Lord Daoist Jinghe immediately stood up. "Let's go watch the show." Mo Chenga was speechless. "Master. So they were going to put on an act?" Lord Daoist Jinghe said, "Why wouldn't we go watch the show? That old bastard Lu Dingyuan has been arrogant for 1,000 years. I've long been annoyed by him. Now that I finally have a chance to see him make a fool of himself, I must go." Mo Chenga thought, "Master, you're much more arrogant than him. Although Lu Dingyuan also cultivates devil arts, he has a stable mentality because of his identity. Usually he only uses his power to oppress people. Who told Tiandao sect to be so powerful?" "Qin," she said, "if I don't let Master go, how can he sit still?" "Yes, the three of us will go together. We'll make Lu Dingyuan so angry that he vomits blood." Lord Daoist Jinghe announced arrogantly, then led his 2 treasured disciples to attack the Wanhe Tower. The process couldn't be described in detail. In short, the 2 of them and Lord Daoist Jinyang successfully angered Lu Dingyuan until his devil aura surged and he almost couldn't control his emotions and started fighting. Then Lord Daoist Speechless and Daoist Ji rushed over and confronted them. Shenqing School and Tiandao sect started fighting. This news spread among the high-level cultivators in Kuanzhong City in less than a day. For a while, people's hearts were shaken and restless. There were 7 late-stage nascent soul cultivators in the Celestial Pole. Excluding Master Song Feng, who either disappeared or went on a killing spree, there were still 6 left. The 2 great sects each had 2 of them. If they really started fighting, it would be the same as turning the world upside down. At that time, it would be good enough to survive the turmoil caused by the fight between the 4 late-stage nascent soul cultivators, not to mention resisting the devil path and beast cultivators. The calmest ones were the disciples of Gujin sect and Danding School because their heads were great late-stage nascent soul cultivators. From this point of view, the effect of a late-stage nascent soul cultivator on a cultivation sect was immeasurable. It wasn't as simple as having great strength. Because of this, the nascent soul cultivators who stayed in Kuanzhong City reached a consensus. They hastily sent a message to the other 2 nascent soul cultivators, as well as Biyun sect's Ding Wan, Spirit Beast sect's Hua Lingyun, and other famous figures among the nascent soul cultivators to mediate. At this moment, Householder Heaven Herb was overseeing the demonic cultivator forest while Venerable Swordsman Yuan Ying was guarding Demonic Mountain. When the 2 of them received the message, they turned pale with fright and immediately rushed back to Kuanzhong City. Householder Heaven Herb arrived first. Since Kuanzhong City was close to the demonic cultivator forest, he arrived in less than half a day. Originally, Venerable Swordsman Yuan Ying wouldn't have been able to get there so quickly. The distance from Demonic Mountain to Kuanzhong City was more than half of Kunwu. Even if he used his wind feather sword as if his life depended on it, it would still take him 3 to 4 days to get there. Fortunately, after establishing contact with Yunzhong, the Celestial Pole also built a long-distance transmission array. Although it wouldn't be used under normal circumstances, this was obviously a special case. Venerable Swordsman Yuan Ying immediately activated the transmission array and returned to Kuanzhong City. Venerable Swordsman Yuan Ying, Householder Heaven Herb, Ding Wan, Hua Lingyun, and even Lord Daoist Wuxia of Zhengfa sect, who usually didn't show up, also hurried over. For a time, all the nascent soul cultivators with a bit of reputation in the Celestial Pole rushed to Kuanzhong City like a swarm of bees. Fortunately, the war was stable now and nascent soul cultivators were only overseeing things. Otherwise, the Immortal Alliance's line of defense would have completely collapsed. Mo Chenga knew it would be very troublesome to deal with the aftermath of killing Fairy Feng Qing, but she still underestimated the extent of the trouble. Almost the entire Celestial Pole was running around for this matter. Perhaps Fairy Feng Qing also didn't expect that she, who was only an ordinary nascent soul cultivator when she was alive, would cause such a big storm after her death. Shenqing School and Tiandao sect had been confronting each other in Wanhe Pagoda for 2 days. During these 2 days, aside from Lu Dequan who was guarding the gate, Daoist Haifeng, the only remaining nascent soul cultivator of Tiandao sect, also came to Kuanzhong City. As for Shenqing School, Miaoyi and Shenin were on their way. The 2 sides were still confronting each other. Although the cultivators of the 2 groups had some good personal relations, this matter was related to the rise and fall of their sects, so they could only put their personal relations aside and put the interests of their sects first. 6 against 4, Shenqing School obviously had the upper hand. This was also what Lu Dingyuan hated the most. Originally, Tiandao sect and Shenqing School's nascent soul cultivators were 7 against 5, and they even had a cultivator in the late nascent soul stage, so they had the upper hand. However, in the past 200 years, Tiandao sect's luck wasn't good, so it became 5 against 8. If it weren't for him and Bayan, who could still hold on for several hundred years, Tiandao sect would have most likely fallen. Thinking of this, Lu Dingyuan hated them even more. Although Fengqing's strength wasn't good, her existence at least made the number of nascent soul cultivators in Tiandao sect look better. The significance of her death wasn't because of the strength she represented, but because of the number she represented. The death of nascent soul cultivators one by one seemed to indicate that Tiandao sect's inevitable decline had arrived. This cast a shadow in Lu Dingyuan's heart that was difficult to get rid of. He really couldn't tolerate Tiandao sect falling into his hands. This was the situation when Venerable Swordsman Yuanying arrived. At the long table in the middle, Xianqing school and Tiandao sect were sitting on one side facing each other. The nascent soul cultivators were sitting casually on the side. Among these people he saw Lord Taoist Wuxia, Ding Wan, Feng Xiao, Hualingyun, householder Heaven Herb. Putting aside the others, they more or less had personal relationships with the cultivators of the two great sects, so they were slightly biased. Householder Heaven Herb looked calm as if he didn't want to get involved at all. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying understood his thoughts. Danding school was almost cut off because the 6 great sects delayed the rescue. Although there wasn't any deep hatred between them, he would definitely be happy to watch a good show if the 6 great sects could fight each other. Therefore, it was impossible to count on Householder Heaven Herb to resolve the hatred between the two great sections. Therefore he still had to take the field. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying's face was expressionless, but he felt a bit helpless inside. He was the most impatient with worldly affairs, otherwise Gujin sect wouldn't have appointed another Deacon Grand Supreme Elder. Unfortunately, all these things fell on his head now. Fellow Taoists. He walked forward and said, if there's anything, there's no harm in discussing it. Your two great sects are the pillars of the Immortal Alliance and are related to the Alliance's prosperity and decline. It's not good for you to be at daggers drawn. Although his tone was cold, his meaning was still conveyed very clearly. Upon seeing him, the expressions on both sides eased up. Among nascent soul cultivators, Venerable Swordsman Yuanying was a peculiar existence. He wasn't like Lu Dingyuan and Lord Taoist Jinyang, who were astute and tactful. He also wasn't like Ding Wan and Feng Xiao, who had a lot of friends. He didn't care about anything else and only cared about his sword, but no one dared to look down on him. He had almost no friends, but everyone respected him. Because he didn't fight and because he didn't care, he was actually the most upright person. According to rumors, Venerable Swordsman Yuanying had been self-disciplined all his life and had never done anything biased. He wouldn't be partial even to his own disciples. No one had ever objected to what he said. In short, Venerable Swordsman Yuanying's character was like a shining signboard in the celestial pole. Almost everyone believed he would stand on the most just side. Lu Dingyuan's anger hadn't subsided yet, so he said stiffly, Fellow Taoist Yuanying, it's good that you're here. I hope Xianqing School can give us an explanation about this matter. Before Venerable Swordsman Yuanying could speak, Lord Taoist Jinyang already said angrily, How ridiculous! It's clearly me who wants an explanation from you. When did it become us giving you an explanation? Su Jinyang, do you want to be the one to complain? Lord Taoist Jinyang retorted sarcastically, I thought you were covered in dirt and wouldn't be able to wash yourself clean even if you were thrown into the Eastern Sea. Do you think you're a good person? You too. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying spoke. His voice was still cold, but he successfully stopped the two great late nascent soul cultivators and the leaders of the two great sects from arguing. He said, if you keep arguing you won't solve anything except for wasting time. The two of them were silent for a while, then said in unison, What do you think we should do? Venerable Swordsman Yuanying looked up and swept his gaze over the two silent people. He said, If you accept my mediation, each of you tell me what happened. Lord Taoist Jinyang and Lu Dingyuan glared at each other, then both agreed. Okay. Lord Taoist Jinyang knew when to stop. He struck first to gain the upper hand so he could speak in a reasonable manner. As for Lu Dingyuan, although he was furious, he wasn't a fool. Since Fengqing was dead and Tiandao sect insisted on opposing Xianqing School, it wouldn't benefit Tiandao sect at all. It would be better for them to resolve this grudge under Venerable Swordsman Yuanying's mediation for the time being and train their troops for further development. However, Tiandao sect's face had to be preserved, so Su Jinyang shouldn't try to invert right and wrong. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying's gaze shifted between the two of them and said, Since Fengqing was killed, fellow Taoist Lu, please speak first. Lu Dingyuan nodded and said, Fellow Taoists all know that Tiandao sect has few talented people now. For the sake of the Immortal Alliance, Junior Marshal Brother Bayan and I have been stationed here for a long time, leaving only Lu Dequan and Fengqing in the sect. Not long ago the Eastern Sea changed and beast cultivators invaded. Bishuan Court came to Tiandao sect for help, so Fengqing went to Bishuan Court. He paused for a moment and continued to say, as you all know, Xianqing School's Qin Shoujing and Mo Qingwei accepted the task to take over Fengqing's position and guard Bishuan Court. The strange thing is that after they took over the task, Fengqing never came back, and we also didn't receive any news until a few days ago, when Fengqing's natal lamp suddenly extinguished in the sect. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying nodded slowly. Then what's fellow Taoist Lu's opinion on this matter? Lu Dingyuan took a deep breath and said, before Su Jinyang came I didn't have any opinion. I just wanted to send someone to the Eastern Sea to see what happened to Fengqing when I had some free time. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying turned to Lord Taoist Jinyang. Fellow Taoist Jinyang, what about you? Lord Taoist Jinyang perfectly maintained his unhappy expression. He said, now, we didn't know about Fengqing's matter before. 2 days ago, Shoujing and Qingwei came back and said that because the beast cultivators attacked Bishuan Court, they lingered in the Eastern Sea but ran into Fengqing, who left a long time ago. I don't know why Fengqing didn't go back. After she ran into them, she became even more jealous, so she tried to sneak attack them, but her skills were inferior and she was killed instead. Right after Lord Taoist Jinyang finished speaking, Lu Dingyuan snorted coldly. Nonsense. How could Fengqing sneak attack them? Lu Dingyuan, fellow Taoists. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying shouted. Seeing that the two of them didn't say anything else, he said, since this matter fell on fellow Taoists Shoujing and Qingwei, please explain it to us. Qin Shi nodded at Mo Chenga, then said loudly, Senior Yuanying, let me explain. Chapter 617. Qin Shi omitted the beginning and the end of what happened in the Eastern Sea. Apart from his experiences in the Six Paths Palace, he basically told her everything. According to him, Fairy Fengqing had lingered in the East Sea for an ulterior motive. After meeting them, she became even more suspicious and jealous of them. In the end, she secretly attacked them and wanted to kill them both. Once he finished speaking, he handed over the wreckage of the destroyed 10,000 miles canoe. From the spiritual aura fluctuations left on it, it was easy to tell that it was indeed Fengqing's handiwork. Once Qin Shi finished speaking, the 6th floor of Wanquan Pagoda fell into silence. Although Fengqing's action was very stupid, she was famous for her bad temper. Otherwise, she wouldn't have the title of female Rakshasa. It wasn't strange for her to do such a thing. Lu Dingyuan was furious. Nonsense. No matter how stupid Fengqing was, she would not fight 1 against 2 and attack the strong with the weak. I feel that all of you covet Fengqing's fortuitous encounter, and that's why you're waiting for an opportunity to kill her and seize her treasure. Lord Taoist Jinyang snorted and pointed at the black cloak on the table. Then what about this thing? Venerable Sword Yuanying did not express his opinion immediately. Instead, he picked up the cloak and examined it carefully. He said, I've heard of this before. It's called the Revolving Devil Cloak. It should have a set of devil art that goes with it. It's not easy to cultivate this demonic technique. The slightest mistake will cause one's personality to change drastically. Old Lu, did you hear that? Lord Taoist Jinghe, who had been sitting and watching the show, lazily said, Don't say Fengqing wouldn't be that stupid. The facts prove that she's that stupid. This is just speculation. Lu Dingyuan's face and neck turned red. He barely suppressed his anger and turned to Venerable Swordsman Yuanying. Taoist Yuanying, say something. Honorable Swordsman Yuanying sighed. That's right, it's just a guess. Things were back to square one. There was material evidence that Fengqing's temperament changed greatly because of the devil art, but this material evidence wasn't particularly strong. Qin Shi and Mo Chenga killing people and seizing their treasures. Although there was no evidence, it was the most reasonable speculation. Both sides had their own opinions and there was no way to distinguish between them. After a while, Venerable Swordsman Yuanying said faintly, I have an idea, but I don't know if you will agree. Lord Taoist Jinyang softened his tone. Fellow Taoist Yuanying, please go ahead. Venerated Swordsman Yuanying said, in the cultivation world, there are 2 kinds of dermic arts that can prevent people from lying. One of them was the soul-searching technique. This technique was quite simple, but it had many limitations and the target would suffer great damage. The other type is the dream-leading technique. The dream-leading technique uses dreams as a guide to make people lower their guard and answer any questions without any negative consequences. He looked at Qin Shi and Mo Chenga. Are the 2 of you willing to take the dream-leading techniques test? Upon hearing what he said, Lord Taoist Jinyang and Lu Dingyuan both looked astonished. Lord Taoist Jinghe asked in surprise, "Old man Yuaning, you actually know the dream-leading technique?" The soul-searching technique had been passed down until now, but not many people knew about the dream-leading technique, and even fewer people knew how to use it. Venerable Swordsman Yuaning said lightly, "A little." "All right." Lu Dingyuan immediately agreed and turned to look at them. "If you don't dare, then you have a guilty conscience." Qin Shi and Mo Tiange looked at each other and smiled. "What we said isn't empty talk. There's nothing to be afraid of." "Fellow Taoist Jinyang?" Venerable Swordsman Yuaning turned to Lord Taoist Jinyang. Seeing that the two of them looked relaxed, Lord Taoist Jinyang naturally didn't object. "Thank you." Venerable Swordsman Yuaning nodded and said to Mo Tiange and Qin Shi, "The two of you withdraw your divine senses and relax your sea of knowledge. Don't resist." With so many nascent soul cultivators staring at them, asking them to relax their sea of knowledge was indeed a bit difficult. However, they also knew that if they didn't relax their sea of knowledge and accept the dream-leading technique, they would feel very uncomfortable. Lord Taoist Jinghe said in a low voice, "Master's here, so you only need to worry. If someone tries to harm you, Master and Senior Martial Brother Jinyang will definitely risk our lives to protect you." With Lord Taoist Jinghe's words, the two of them felt very relieved. Right after they closed their eyes and relaxed their sea of knowledge, Venerable Swordsman Yuaning stretched out his hand and slowly condensed a ball of light in his palm. When the ball of light condensed to the size of a fist, he gave it a light push. The ball of light split into two and enveloped them. In an instant, Mo Tiange felt as if the people and things around her were far away from her. She entered a kind of wonderful feeling, relaxed, happy and without any burden. In her daze she seemed to have been asked some questions. She didn't pause at all and answered intuitively. After a long time, they heard Venerable Swordsman Yuaning's indifferent but clear voice, "Everything has been asked. Withdraw." The ball of light withdrew from the two of them and Venerable Swordsman Yuaning's gaze swept over Lu Dingyuan. "Are there any other questions?" Mo Tiange didn't know what she just said, so she looked at Lord Taoist Jinghe. Lord Taoist Jinghe chuckled and gave them a thumbs up. The two of them felt relieved. It was a fact that Feng Qing made the first move. As long as Venerable Swordsman Yuaning didn't ask anything else, it didn't matter. Lu Dingyuan's face was ashen. After struggling for a long time he said, the two of them already knew Feng Qing's mood wasn't right, so why did they still provoke her on purpose? This goes against the principle of watching and helping each other. Lord Taoist Jinyang said, "She has evil intentions towards others, but she still wants others to watch and help her? As it turns out, Tiandao sect's rules are supposed to be obeyed by others." Lu Dingyuan's expression was extremely unsightly. He never expected it to be Feng Qing who made the first move. Feng Qing wasn't such a stupid person. After thinking it over, he figured Feng Qing probably made a mistake in her cultivation, but he didn't notice it. Tiandao sect's face had already been lost, but he had to argue for what was right. He turned to Venerable Swordsman Yuaning and said, "Fellow Taoist Yuaning, what do you think?" Venerable Swordsman Yuaning's face, which was as handsome as a youth, remained calm. He said, "Shoujing and Qingwei's actions were indeed somewhat inappropriate. If this happened before, Venerable Swordsman Yuaning wouldn't have said a word. But now that the Celestial Pole sect had established the Celestial Pole Immortal Alliance, everyone should be regarded as fellow disciples regardless of their identities. If it were someone else, they'd probably do the same as Mo Tiange and Mo Tiange." Lord Taoist Jinyang snorted but didn't say anything. Venerable Swordsman Yuaning said, "All right, things are clear now. This matter isn't Shoujing and Qingwei's fault, so Tiandao sect can't trouble them anymore." Upon hearing what she said, several people from Tiandao sect looked extremely gloomy, but they all agreed with Venerable Swordsman Yuaning's mediation. Since the matter was in front of them, they couldn't say anything now. Venerable Swordsman Yuaning continued, "However, the two of them saw that Feng Qing was trapped in a demonic barrier, yet they didn't help her. Their actions went against justice." He paused for a moment. Since no one said anything, he continued, "Since that's the case, Xianqing School should compensate Tiandao sect." Many people present heaved sighs of relief, but they also felt regretful in their hearts. In the end, they couldn't fight. Since the two great sects didn't object, this was practically the best result. Lu Dingyuan knew that since Feng Qing attacked first, they wouldn't be able to get any justice from Xianqing School. Lord Taoist Jinyang also understood that it was impossible for Tiandao sect to not pay anything for the loss of a nascent soul cultivator. Therefore, both sides tacitly agreed to this result. Since the result was out, All the nascent soul cultivators left Wanha Pagoda with either peace of mind or regret, leaving behind only the two great sects and their leaders. Next was the main event, the issue of compensation. A nascent soul cultivator meant a lot to a sect, so Lu Dingyuan used this point to demand an exorbitant price. Lord Taoist Jinyang naturally didn't agree. They only acted inappropriately in this matter, so they didn't need to take responsibility. Compensation was just a gesture. The two of them began to engage in a war of words and haggle, calculating every spirit stone clearly. How were they great late nascent soul cultivators? They were clearly small peddlers in market squares. Under the witness of the leaders of various sects, the two sides finally reached an agreement and erased this matter. When they returned to Xianqing School's branch courtyard, Lord Taoist Jinyang wiped his face and said, "That old bastard Lu Dingyuan, sooner or later, I'll make him spit out what he took today." Although more than half of it was cut off, it was still not a small amount. Mo Chinga pondered for a moment then said, "Senior Marshal Brother Jinyang, I have some spiritual plants that can make up for part of it." Lord Taoist Jinyang waved his hand. "High-aged spiritual plants are hard to come by, so you'd better keep them for concocting medicinal pills. The sect can still afford these things." He then smiled and said, "Qingwei, you're still treating me like an outsider. You're sect disciples, so if something happens, the sect will naturally take care of it for you. Besides, this matter isn't your fault." Mo Chenga was stunned and seemed to be lost in thought. So this was the difference between her and Qin Shi? While she was lost in thought, Lord Taoist Jinyang's expression became serious. "You two should go back to Mount Taikang. Time is pressing. I'll let our disciples pay attention to what Senior Hupa said. You just need to focus on cultivating. Senior Marshal Brother Jinyang, then this place, Miaoyi and Shenin are already here." Lord Taoist Jinghe waved his hand. "You two can go. By the way, tell Lingxi that he'd better also enter closed-door meditation. The three of you are Xianqing School's hope." Mo Chenga looked up at Qin Shi. Seeing his solemn expression, she somewhat understood that her master and Lord Taoist Jinyang had already made a decision. If the world was really in chaos and the world was changed, the whole Xianqing School would strive to preserve their lives and let them pass on their Taoist teachings for Xianqing School. There was an indescribable feeling in her heart, but in the end she just answered softly, "Yes." After Lord Taoist Jinyang and Lord Taoist Jinghe made their decision, Mo Chenga and Qin Shi set foot on the road back to Mount Taikang on the same day. Not long after they left, Shenin and Miaoyi arrived. The four Lord Taoists didn't go to Wanha Pagoda. Instead, they holed up in Xianqing School's branch courtyard, closed the door and set up restrictions to discuss matters. The next day, Luo Fengxue, the head of Mount Taikang, received a letter. The content wasn't long, but she read it all night. Soon after, Xianqing School issued an order to recall a group of disciples. Later, batches of disciples were sent out one after another, but they didn't go to the battlefield. Instead, they wandered around the whole celestial pole for unknown reasons. Only a few people in the whole Xianqing School knew about these changes. Mo Chenga, Qin Shi, and Lord Taoist Lingxi all entered closed-door meditation at the same time. After Lord Taoist Huayan went to Kuanzhong City and returned to Mount Taikang, he didn't return to his Immortal's Cave. Instead, he guarded the Hall of Three Pure on the main peak every day. Mo Chenga knew he didn't have much time left. His cultivation level had been stuck in the early stage of the nascent soul realm, so it was basically impossible for him to advance. Therefore, he planned to contribute his last strength to the sect, to protect them in closed-door meditation. With this thought in mind, Mo Chenga took out a medicine bottle from her Chenkuan ring. The medicinal pills in this medicine bottle were called longevity pills. One pill could prolong one's life by 500 years. Chapter 618. "Senior Marshal Brother, do you think I should take the longevity pills out?" she asked while stroking the medicine bottle in her hand. Qin Shi, who was rummaging through ancient books, answered after a while, "You can take them if you want." Mo Chenga turned her head and rolled her eyes at him. "How can you be so casual?" Qin Shi said helplessly, "This is something you have the right to decide. Why do I need to tell you? But, not to mention how rare longevity pills are, other people's pills can only prolong their lives by 100 years, but mine can prolong their lives by 500 years. How do you explain this?" Mo Chenga was confused. She wasn't stingy with these things, but it was hard to explain the source. Qin Shi said, "They won't force you to explain. What are you worried about?" Fine, she admitted that this was related to the sect. What she lacked was Qin Shi's calmness. She thought for a while then asked, "Do you think I should take out the spiritual plants and medicinal pills at this critical moment?" When they were organizing the virtual sky world, they picked a batch of spiritual plants. Most of them were refined into medicinal pills and a small part was stored. There were so many of them that they couldn't use them all. She thought for a while then answered, "You can. They're especially useful now. The sect's strength is in urgent need of improvement." Chenga asked again, "How much should we take out?" She thought about the number of medicinal pills she had and said, "Half." When they were trapped on Demonic Mountain, they had nothing to do but concoct medicinal pills every day. The medicinal pills they saved could scare people to death. Although the total amount couldn't compare to the sect's storehouse, they had a lot more high-level medicinal pills, and their quality was also much better. The two of them claimed to be in closed-door meditation, but in fact they both had important things to do. She was looking for records about changing the world. Unfortunately, with the end of every era, a large number of ancient books disappeared, so it was difficult to find a few words about that period of history. The virtual sky world was probably created before the Middle Ages era, so there was no such content in the ancient books. For this reason, Luo Fengxue sent out a large number of disciples to search for books and jade slips on various aspects. As for Chenga, she was pondering the relationship between several cultivation techniques. Her Sunu art of the origin, Shi's pure yang technique and art of 3 primordial cycles, as well as the yin and yang dual cultivation technique Yuan Bao gave them all had more or less problems. Some of them were suitable for the virtual sky world, while some weren't. They had to solve these problems before they could cultivate at a rapid pace with the help of their constitutions. Thinking of medicinal pills, Chenga summoned Shui Linbua and asked her to call Luo Fengxue over. She gradually adapted to her new identity and also learned to put on the airs of a nascent soul lord. This was the air that a nascent soul lord must have, and it was also a kind of motivation for the disciples of the sect. Luo Fengxue rode on the machine-operated eagle, flying towards the extreme abyss pool. After she advanced to the nascent soul realm, he sealed the exit of his immortal's cave, which was originally located on a mountaintop, and opened another exit in Extreme Abyss Valley. Right now, the entire Extreme Abyss Valley was within the range of the Immortal's Cave's restrictions. If they wanted to enter the valley, they had to ride Chenga's special machine-operated eagle. Looking down from the sky above the Extreme Abyss Valley, most of the valley floor was covered by the Extreme Abyss Pool. The water was as clear as a mirror and the waves were rippling. Being at the bottom of the valley, there was another kind of scenery. The most eye-catching thing was the waterfall that flowed down like white silk. The sound of water splashing could be heard and pearls splashed. On the surface of the water, there were ice flows everywhere looking like glaciers. In one corner of the pool, there were several wooden houses connected by winding corridors. Both houses were covered with green vines looking quite wild. The open space where the wooden houses were located was full of exotic flowers and plants, and in the snow and ice, one could see a proud and unyielding character. At a glance, Luo Fengxue knew it was the masterpiece of Chenga's registered disciple. They had known each other for more than 100 years, so she knew this youngest nascent soul cultivator in the celestial pole too well. If Luo Fengxue had asked her to decorate her own immortal's cave, she could have just built 2 wooden houses at random. How could it be as elegant as it was now? However, this was the style of a nascent soul cultivator's immortal's cave. Martial Uncle Shoujing's immortal's cave was originally built on an uninhabited mountaintop. Forget it, let's not talk about it. Luo Fengxue came down from the machine-operated eagle. Shui Linbo was already waiting beside her. She bowed and said, "Greetings, sect head." Luo Fengxue smiled and said, "No need to be so polite." Now that Shui Linbo was Chenga's disciple, she was the same as her in terms of seniority. However, Shui Linbo was both a core formation cultivator and the sect head, so her status was much higher. Shui Linbo looked calm, neither servile nor overbearing. "Auntie is already waiting for sect head. Sect head, please come with me." Luo Fengxue nodded. "Thank you." Shui Linbo took Luo Fengxue into the cave on the rock wall and walked all the way to the hall. "Auntie, sect head Bingxin is here." Chenga was studying a cultivation technique. Upon hearing the voice, she stopped and nodded. "I see." Then she smiled at Luo Fengxue and said, "Fengxue, sit down." "Thank you, Martial Uncle Qingwei." Luo Fengxue bowed solemnly and then sat at the last seat. Up until now, the two of them had been well-mannered and hadn't violated the etiquette in the slightest. When Luo Fengxue sat down, they looked at each other for a while and couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Not bad this time. You finally look like a nascent soul cultivator," Luo Fengxue said. Chenga said helplessly, "Isn't it easy to put on airs?" It just depends on who I'm dealing with. So, I'm someone who doesn't need to put on airs? I'm so honored. Luo Fengxue pretended to cup her hands. Mo Chinga smiled and said, I called you here today because I have something to tell you. Her attitude was kind and she was smiling. Her speech and mannerisms had the demeanor of a high-level cultivator. Luo Fengxue couldn't help but think of the little cultivator who followed martial uncle Shoujing to Xianqing school and sighed inwardly. Martial uncle, what can I do for you? Mo Chinga took out a Qingquan bag from her robe and handed it to her. We're in troubled times now. Master and senior martial brothers are all running around for the sect, but we can't help them. There are some medicinal pills and spiritual plants in here that we've accumulated in our daily lives. Just take it as doing something for the sect. Luo Fengxue knew they were both good at pill concocting, so she accepted the bag and said, in fact, you've helped the sect a lot. Your spiritual beast, Fei, brought back many clansmen last time. These Feis are very sensitive to treasures. With them, the chances of finding treasures are very high. Mo Chinga smiled bitterly. Do you think I don't know that guy? He's never willing to suffer losses, and he doesn't let his clansmen recognize him as their master. I'm afraid he wants a lot in return. Luo Fengxue pursed her lips and smiled. The cost is indeed higher than the spiritual beasts that recognize them as masters, but without them, where would those treasures come from? To tell you the truth, this time I received Martial Uncle Xinjiang's order and sent a group of disciples to look for treasures with Fei. These things will be used to tide over this crisis. If Xianqing School can safely tide over this crisis, these Fei will take great credit. It's good that you don't have to raise them for free. The two of them chatted for a while before Luo Fengxue took her leave. Luo Fengxue rode the machine-operated eagle out of Extreme Abyss Valley and rode her sword back to the main peak's main hall. She then opened her Qingquan bag and poured out the medicinal pills and spiritual plants. She was stunned by the fall. The medicinal pills and spiritual plants poured out of the Qingquan bag could pile up into a small mountain, and there was still more. Among them, there were several hundred jade boxes for spiritual plants and countless jade bottles for medicinal pills. Luo Fengxue was stunned for a while. She then put her hand into her Qingquan bag and muttered to herself, there are so many medicinal pills. Even the bottles must cost a lot, right? These jade bottles were exquisite and made of high-quality spiritual jades. They were worth a lot of spirit stones alone. Luo Fengxue grabbed a jade bottle and opened the cork. Instantly, the room was filled with fragrance. She poured out a pill and was even more shocked. Extreme Purity Pill. This was a top-grade spiritual pill that could help core formation. She then opened several jade bottles. In addition to Extreme Purity pills, there were also Clear Sky pills, Dew of Immortality, and even nascent soul-level Extreme Purity Golden pills and 9 Transformations Yang Restoration pills. Luo Fengxue felt a bit suffocated. Even Xianqing School's storehouse didn't have so many high-grade medicinal pills. She then randomly took a jade box with a high-grade talisman on it to prevent spiritual aura loss. Next to the talisman was a line of small words. Purple Origin Spirit Grass, 8,000 years old. She then looked at the other jade boxes. They were all precious spiritual plants, all of which were more than 5,000 years old, and some of them were even 10,000 years old. Luo Fengxue wiped her sweat. After thinking for a while, she stuffed all the jade bottles and jade boxes back into her Qingquan bag, left the sect head hall, and walked to the front of the Hall of the Three Pure Ones. Lord Taoist Huayan was drawing talismans. For him, it didn't matter if he cultivated or not. While he still had more than 200 years to live, he should quickly make use of his remaining energy and arrange a good future for his disciples. Therefore, after hearing the news brought by Mo Chinga and Luo Fengxue, he asked to return to the mountain to guard the Hall of the Three Pure Ones to protect the 3 most promising nascent soul cultivators of Xianqing School in their closed-door meditation. When Luo Fengxue came, he only paid a little attention to her. "All Fengxue. What's the matter?" Martial Uncle Huayan. After greeting him, Luo Fengxue didn't have time to be polite and presented the Qingquan bag to him. "Just now, Martial Uncle Qingwei called me over and said I would give these things to the sect." "Oh? What is it that even you can't decide?" Lord Taoist Huayan's brush moved like dragons and snakes. As the talisman brush moved, the handwriting on the talisman paper emitted a faint spiritual light. "Martial Uncle, you'll understand when you see it." After drawing a talisman, Lord Taoist Huayan put down the talisman brush and took the Qingquan bag. He put his hand into the Qingquan bag, took out a jade bottle, opened it, sniffed it, and said, "High-grade aura refining pills. Good stuff." Then he turned to Luo Fengxue and asked, "Is this all?" Luo Fengxue said, Look at how many there are and you'll know why I came to ask. Hearing this, Lord Taoist Huayan thought that even if there were a few more, it wouldn't be strange. After all, those two people had deep fated chances. Then he was stunned. He just tipped the Qingquan bag casually, and a pile of things fell out with a clatter. Lord Taoist Huayan touched the Qingquan bag and simply emptied it all out. He exclaimed, "These two little guys are too lucky. Where did they get so many spiritual plants? They can actually concoct so many medicinal pills." Luo Fengxue said next to him, "Martial Uncle Huayan, take a look at those spiritual plants first." Lord Taoist Huayan glanced at her suspiciously, then picked up a jade box with the words Phoenix Crown Grass, 9,000 years old. He was stunned, then hurriedly took off the talisman on it. Sure enough, there was a 9,000 years old phoenix crown grass inside. After a long time, he closed the jade box, stuck the talisman on it and said to Luo Fengxue, "Fengxue, leave these things with me. If there's no problem, I'll give them to you." Luo Fengxue said without hesitation, "Yes, martial uncle." Chapter 619. An hour later, the Qingquan bag that had just been given away was back in her hands. Mo Qingge pointed to the Qingquan bag on the table and asked, "Senior brother Huayan, why did you take it back?" Lord Taoist Huayan asked, "Qingwei, did you really give these things to the sect?" Mo Qingge nodded. "Of course not." Lord Taoist Huayan asked, "Do you know the value of these things?" "Of course I do. The medicinal pills inside were refined by me and senior brother Shoujing." "Now that you put it that way, I understand." Lord Taoist Huayan put away the Qingquan bag again. "These things are too important for the sect. I have to go to Qinzhong City again." Mo Qingge understood. "Senior brother, go ahead. With us here, the sect will be fine." She took out a wooden box from a secret compartment on the table and said, "Senior brother Huayan, there are some precious medicinal pills and spiritual herbs here. It's not appropriate to give them to Fengxue directly. You take them with you and ask senior brother Xinjiang how to deal with them. Or you can share them directly." Lord Taoist Huayan couldn't think of anything more precious than the heavenly golden pill, and the 9 transformations yang restoration pill were in the Qingquan bag. Seeing that Mo Qingge pushed the wooden box over and motioned for him to open it, he didn't refuse. There were still jade bottles and boxes in the wooden box. This time there were more than 20 jade boxes and only 4 or 5 jade bottles. Lord Taoist Huayan saw the words, 100 fruits 10,000 years on the top jade box, and his expression immediately became solemn. Those 10,000 years spiritual herbs are common species. These are the precious spiritual herbs, he heard Mo Qingge's explanation. Lord Taoist Huayan nodded slightly. He didn't open it but looked at the jade bottles. He picked up a jade bottle and pulled out the cork. A faint fragrance slowly floated out. "This is..." Smelling the fragrance, Lord Taoist Huayan was stunned and then excited. "Is this the longevity pill?" The longevity pill was very precious because it contained an extremely precious spiritual herb, which usually appeared only once in 100 years. Once it appeared, it would cause a scramble. Those who got the spiritual herb might not necessarily use it to refine the longevity pill. Therefore, the longevity pill rarely appeared in the world and could only be found by chance. Mo Qingge was surprised. "Senior brother, could it be that he has already taken the longevity pill?" Lord Taoist Huayan shook his head. "I was lucky enough to see the auction of the longevity pill when I was in the core formation stage. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough money at that time, and I could only watch it fall into the hands of others. Later, I formed my nascent soul and never saw it again." He stared at Mo Qingge. "Qingwei, I won't hide it from you. I urgently need this pill, so I won't be polite with you. When I come back from Qinzhong City, I definitely won't let you suffer any losses." Mo Qingge waved her hand and said, "Senior martial brother Huayan, the sect is now going through a difficult time together. Senior brother should be able to see that we don't lack these things. If we're talking about repayment, no matter how many treasures senior brother brings, we won't be able to use them. It's not as practical as senior brother advancing to the mid-stage. Advancing to the middle stage would increase the strength of the sect and also increase the possibility of them surviving this tribulation." Lord Taoist Huayan understood what she meant and felt it was reasonable, so he said, "In that case, I won't be unreasonable." He put away the wooden box and said nothing more. He went back to the main peak to give some instructions and then set off for Qinzhong City again. Watching Lord Taoist Huayan leave, Mo Qingge thought she had to build a teleportation formation between Mount Taikang and Qinzhong City as soon as possible. It was too troublesome to run back and forth like this. She went back to her cave and asked Shui Linbo to find suitable candidates to learn the teleportation formation. Shui Linbo had always done things quickly. She immediately went to the sect head's hall on the main peak and told Luo Fengxue about this matter. Then, accompanied by Luo Fengxue, she gathered all the remaining formation masters in the sect and finally selected 2 people. Upon learning that they were going to learn formations from Tao Lord Primrose, the 2 of them were incredibly excited. Everyone in Shenqing school knew that among the Lord Taoists, Xinjiang was good at refining tools, Shoujing was good at concocting pills, Huayan was good at making talismans, and Qingwei was good at formations. Compared with the other 3 miscellaneous studies, formations were the least studied, and there were even fewer who could be called formation masters. Probably because the other 3 miscellaneous studies were closely related to cultivation and fights of magical powers, but formations weren't directly related. Usually, buying 1 or 2 sets was enough, and there was no need to learn them by themselves. In this case, most formation masters had to rely on self-study and talent. Now that they had this opportunity to ask Lord Taoist Qingwei about formations, how could they not be excited? Shui Linbo took the 2 disciples back to her cave in Extreme Abyss Valley on the same day. When they got down from the Mechanical Eagle and saw the beautiful scenery of Extreme Abyss Valley without any restrictions, the 2 disciples felt strange. Didn't Lord Taoist Qingwei set up a defensive formation in his cave? As they thought about it, they suddenly felt a slight movement of spiritual aura. A ferocious bird in the sky screeched but couldn't fly down. Only then did they realize that formations existed, but they couldn't see them because of their realm. After discovering this, they felt respect and fear in their hearts. It turned out that Lord Taoist Qingwei's attainments and formations had reached the realm of imperceptibility. Under Shui Linbo's guidance, the 2 disciples passed through the winding stone path and arrived at the hall of the cave. "Auntie Master, I've brought them here." Mo Chenga was exchanging cultivation experience with Qin Shi. Hearing the voice, she looked up. The 2 disciples brought by Shui Linbo were both in the foundation building realm. One was a man and the other was a woman. The man looked middle-aged with a calm temperament, and the woman looked about 18 or 19 years old. She didn't look very old either. Seeing them, the 2 disciples hurriedly saluted. Disciple Yiwen Shisu pays respect to Grandmaster Shoujing and Grandmaster Qingwei. Yiwen Shisu. Mo Chenga repeated their names and said with a smile, "Your names match well. It's really interesting." In the face of the Lord Taoist's teasing, the 2 didn't know how to answer. Qin Shi stood up and said, "I'm going to cultivate. If there's anything, just ask Linbo to do it. There's already a lot of things to do. Don't always do it yourself. It's just some trivial things. You ask Linbo for everything. She's only one person, so how can she handle everything? Then find a few more people." Qin Shi turned his head and said, "Linbo, go to Fengxue and ask a few people to help." Shui Linbo answered, "Yes." After thinking for a while, he said, "Where's Jinji? Ask him to come to see me." Jinji went to the martial arts training hall. "I'll call him back." Qin Shi nodded, waved his hand and went to the cultivation room. "Follow me," Mo Chenga said to them, got up and walked to another stone path. Yiwen and Shisu hurriedly followed her. The stone path was wide and ordinary, but the 2 disciples became more and more shocked as they walked. There was obviously an extremely high-level restriction here. Although they could see the existence of the restriction, they couldn't tell what kind of restriction it was, let alone feel the changes of yin, yang, and the 5 elements. After walking to the end of the stone path, Mo Chenga stopped, made a seal with her hands, opened a stone door and walked in. The 2 disciples hurriedly followed her. This stone room was very small and simple. There were no tables, chairs, beds, or cabinets. There were only rows of holes cut in the stone wall, in which all kinds of books, jade slips, formation discs, and formation flags were placed. All kinds of materials were piled randomly on the ground, and there was almost no place to stand. Mo Chenga sat down on the stone slab in the middle, which was slightly higher, and said, "Sit down." The 2 disciples carefully cleared the things under their feet and knelt down in a lower place. "Tell me about you first." She stretched out her hand, took a book, and asked as she flipped through it. Yiwen was the first to answer. "Grandmaster Qingwei, I'm from Seoul's Retreat Peak. I entered the sect when I was a child, but my aptitude was ordinary, so I switched to practicing formations very early." Shisu reported, "I'm from Drifting Cloud Peak. I also entered the sect when I was a child and specialized in formations." Mo Chenga nodded. "I'll ask you a few questions. Answer them according to your habits." "Yes." The 2 of them knew she was going to test their attainments and formations. Mo Chenga asked 3 questions. The 2 disciples thought for a long time and answered them one by one. After they finished answering, they looked at her nervously. Your foundations are quite solid. There's a burning sea-shattering sun formation here. I'll give you 3 days to think of a way to crack it. If you pass, I'll accept you as registered disciples and teach you everything I know about formations. If you can't pass, you can also learn formations from me, but only transporting formations. The two of them were both surprised and delighted. Shisu hurriedly said, Grandmaster, to crack formations, imagination alone isn't accurate enough. You can use whatever you want here, she said, stood up and walked out. I'll come back 3 days later. The two of them stood up to see her off. Yes, disciple obeys. When they returned to the hall, they heard Qin Shi lecturing Yi Jinji. You've been in the peak stage of the foundation building realm for some time, but instead of thinking about advancing to the core formation realm, you hang around in the martial arts hall every day. You have to know that fights of magical powers are important, but cultivation is the foundation. No matter how powerful a foundation building cultivator is, it's not as powerful as a core formation cultivator's casual attack. From today on, you don't need to go out. Stay in the valley and comprehend cultivation techniques. When the time is right, enter closed-door meditation to form your gold core. When your aunt was your age, she already entered closed-door meditation to form her nascent soul. Although I'm a bit inferior, I'm also in the peak stage of the core formation realm. As our disciple, how can you slack off? Yi Jinji said aggrievedly, Master, you and Aunt are rare geniuses in the celestial pole. How can I compare to you? If you can't compare, you won't cultivate? Hualing is also preparing to form his gold core, right? Do you want to lose to him? I understand. The stone door opened and Yi Jinji came out. When he saw her, he looked happy. Annie, you're here. Emo Chenga looked at him without saying anything. Yi Jinji was confused. Andy? After a while, Emo Chenga said, Jinji, I know you don't have enough confidence in yourself, so you want to accumulate more before forming your gold core. But we don't have time now, so you have to form your gold core as soon as possible. Annie, what happened? Emo Chenga shook her head. You'll know sooner or later. Go cultivate. Oh. Chapter 620. After being dumbfounded for a long time, Shui Linbo called out bitterly, Auntie? Emo Chenga said slowly, there's nothing suspicious about your identity. No matter how we investigated, we couldn't find anything wrong with it. If we hadn't accidentally found Wanderer Bayu's letter, I'm afraid we would never have known that you were his most favored maid. Shui Linbo was silent and didn't speak. Emo Chenga also didn't speak. She looked down at the teacup in her hand. After a long time, Shui Linbo slowly knelt down. Linbo has nothing to say. Please punish me, Auntie. How do you want me to punish you? Emo Chenga still didn't look at her. Shui Linbo closed her eyes. Even if you want to drive me out or abolish my cultivation, I'll. Oh. She couldn't finish her sentence. You really have nothing to say? Emo Chenga said, even in front of Jinji? Shui Linbo was stunned and tears flowed down silently. Emo Chenga looked at her and said, I'll give you one more chance. If you still want to stay, tell me the truth. Shui Linbo stared at her blankly. After a long time, she stopped crying and began to narrate in a low voice. After the chaos in Linhai, I came to Kunwu. To make a living, I did everything. I worked as a maid, a waiter, went deep into the forest to pick medicinal herbs, hunted beasts. I did anything that could make money. But even so, the money I earned couldn't support my cultivation. Not to mention building my foundation, even reaching the high level of the aura refining realm was difficult. Later, I heard that there were many individual cultivators in Kuanzhong City and it was very prosperous, so I went there. Sure enough, there were many opportunities in Kuanzhong City. If I wanted to make money, there was work to do. Besides, foundation building cultivators could be seen everywhere. If I could get some advice from them, it would be a great blessing for low-level aura refining cultivators like me. But it's not easy to live in Kuanzhong City. If my cultivation level is low, I'll be bullied by others. When I went to the southern forest to pick medicinal herbs, I accidentally picked several hundreds of years old purple jade Ganoderma. I was ecstatic and thought I had a chance to build my foundation, but I was accidentally discovered by the owner of the medicine shop, and he took the Ganoderma. Shui Linbo paused for a while to calm down and then continued, I'm just a low-level aura refining cultivator with no background or backing. Who would make decisions for me? I even wanted to thank the boss for only robbing and not killing anyone. Other than accepting my fate, I had no other choice. Later on, the Wandering Cultivator Alliance put up a notice saying that Wanderer Bayu was recruiting maids. I made up my mind and went to apply. Emo Chenga stared at her. Do you know what kind of person Wanderer Bayu is? I know. Tears rolled down from her eyes, but Shui Linbua's expression was very calm. Everyone in Kuanzhong City knows that Wanderer Baiyu practices the plucking technique and often uses all kinds of methods to find suitable women and seize their primordial yin to aid his cultivation. The so-called maids are actually just cultivation furnaces. She looked up and saw Mo Chenga sitting in the seat of honor, staring at her indifferently without any expression. Shui Linbua smiled bitterly. I know you don't like my behavior, but the feeling of being helpless and hopeless has tortured me to the point of collapse. I want to take revenge, but I don't have a good aptitude in nothing, so I can't take revenge on the drugstore owner. If I become a core formation cultivator's maid, I might have a chance. I smoothly became Wanderer Baiyu's maid and entered his cave. However, he thought my cultivation level was too low and my aptitude was poor, so he didn't do anything to me. But Wanderer Baiyu has so many concubines and maids around him, so how could his days be easy? At first, I was miserably bullied, and after being bullied a lot, I got angry. Once I got angry, my heart also came back to life, but there's no medicine for regret. On the surface, it seems to be a beautiful place, but in fact, every living person is stepping on countless corpses. Besides, even if I beat everyone, so what? As long as Wanderer Baiyu changes his mind, he'll have to sacrifice himself. The tears on her face dried up. Shui Linbua took a deep breath and continued calmly, I can't get rid of this fate. In Wanderer Baiyu's eyes, I'm just a speck of dust and he can do whatever he wants. So I thought, if I can't change my weakness, I'll turn this speck of dust into a pearl to prove to him that I'm of greater use. Maybe then he'll be willing to respect me. I'm not stupid, and I'm even smarter than ordinary people. I worked hard to learn from the people around me, learning to read people's minds and learning to scheme. I spent 10 years doing many things I didn't want to do before finally becoming his most trusted maid. Wanderer Baiyu isn't a good person. He kills innocents and abducts women. There's almost nothing he doesn't do, but he's good to me. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have been able to build my foundation. At that time, I thought it would be good to live like this for the rest of my life. He gave me a place to live, and I'll serve him for the rest of my life. At this point, Shui Linbua paused for a moment and then said, if it weren't for him wanting me to be his human furnace later, human furnace, it's this word again. Mo Chenga sighed. Is this the fate that individual women can't escape? Shui Linbua lowered her head. After I built my foundation, Wanderer Baiyu was tempted. I begged him and said I'd do anything for him in this life as long as he gave me a little respect, but it was useless. He warned me that no matter how much he doted on me, I was just a pet, and a pet wasn't qualified to ask for respect from its master. So you ran away? Yes. Shui Linbua lowered her head, but her fists were clenched. I followed him for decades and did so many things for him, but I couldn't even protect myself. I couldn't accept it, so I ran away. What about Jinji? Why did he really have a chance to get involved? Shui Linbua hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, I had a chance to escape, but Jinji was muddle-headed and exposed my whereabouts, so I lost the chance. I was angry, so I deliberately let Wanderer Baiyu think it was Jinji who helped me escape. Mo Chenga didn't speak for a long time. Since she'd already said it, Shui Linbua simply said, I thought that even if I died this time, I wouldn't be lonely in the underworld with someone with me. It's just that. I didn't expect that Jinji would protect me when he was caught because of me. He's been with me since he was 10 years old and has never seen the dangers of the world, so he's sincere and kind to people. This is his shortcoming but also his advantage. Yes. I didn't expect that I, who'd done all kinds of bad things, would meet such a simple person. Shui Linbua smiled with tears in her smile. For Wanderer Baiyu, daring to run away was a betrayal, and he never showed mercy to those who betrayed him. Jinji's background was too powerful, so he didn't dare to kill us, so he simply locked us up together. When he had time, he'd take us to torture us. So, Mo Chenga said, the story about hiding primordial yin is fake. Shui Linbua smiled bitterly. Yes. Otherwise, how can I explain that he doesn't value primordial yin and hates a human furnace he captured to the bone? Jinji killed Wanderer Baiyu because of your scheme, right? Shui Linbua nodded and admitted, yes. Mo Chenga tapped the rim of her cup and said, after killing Wanderer Baiyu and most of the insiders in the cave, Jinji aroused the sect's anger and killed the individual cultivators' alliance, so no one would know about your past. And through Jinji you got a bright identity and got rid of your dark past. Shui Linbua smiled bitterly but didn't deny it. Then Linbua. Mo Chenga stared at her with no sadness or joy in her eyes. You've done your best. Are you satisfied with this kind of life? Shui Linbua lowered her head. When I wandered the celestial pole, I wondered why my spiritual roots weren't better. If they were a little better, I could go with that fairy. Later, when I came to Shenqing school with Jinji and saw my aunt, I thought, after reincarnation I still ended up here. She kept her head down. I didn't ask for much. As long as there's a place for me to live, that's enough. I've done my best. I'm willing to live like this. What about Jinji? Are you also willing? She raised her head, her eyes calm. Auntie, except for this past, I've never told a lie. Mo Chenga remembered that when she first met her, she asked her, "Do you like Jinji?" She answered yes, she did. Perhaps a person like her, who had used all her strength to survive, would instead fall in love with someone who was so innocent that he did not know what scheming was. She would always remember that in those 10 years, he had wholeheartedly protected her without asking anything, going through life and death with her. In the near future, we'll ask Jinji to enter closed-door meditation to form his gold core, so you can't be trapped in trivial matters anymore. When the people sent by Feng Shui arrive, you should also enter closed-door meditation until you form your gold core. Shui Linbua suddenly raised her head and looked at her. Auntie? Mo Chenga's expression remained unchanged. Go. Shui Linbua understood that she couldn't find a trace of displeasure on her face. She kowtowed deeply and said sincerely, Linbua, thank you for giving me another chance. After Shui Linbua left, she came out of the cultivation room. Seeing that she was still lost in thought, he asked, What's wrong? Do you have any other questions? Mo Chenga came back to her senses and shook her head. That's it. She flipped through the book in his hand and said, This is really a coincidence. When we destroyed the Individual Cultivators Alliance, we brought back a pile of ancient books, but no one read them. If we didn't happen to be looking for something, how could we have found it? Linbua, she's really scheming. Is it safe to keep such a person around us? Mo Chenga said, You just said that if there's anything we can just call Linbua. She said, I think she's been very well behaved all these years. Even if she hides something, there's no need to pursue it too much. I've been thinking, Mo Chenga said, that if she has feelings for Jinji and sincerely takes care of the cave for us, we won't pursue anything. Otherwise, there's no need for her to exist. She then changed the topic. Jinji and Linbua are both in closed-door meditation, so you should quickly call Feifei back. Let's have a total closed-door meditation from the old to the young, from humans to beasts, whether it's your spiritual beast or mine. This sentence successfully made Mo Chenga laugh. Nonsense. Chapter 621. What she said sounded like a joke, but this was indeed their plan. Apart from Xiaofeng, who had just reached the 8th rank, Feifei was already in the 7th rank. Xiaohua and Xiaofan had eaten countless blood-eating vines, so their cultivation levels had grown extremely fast. They would soon reach the 7th rank, and with a bit more effort, they would be able to take human form in the 8th rank. If they were ordered to enter closed-door meditation now and given medicinal pills and divine beast's breath, it wouldn't be impossible for them to advance to the 8th rank in a few decades. The next day, Luo Fengxue personally came with some people. She chose a pair of brother and sister, both of whom were in the foundation-building realm. They were already more than 100 years old, but they still looked like teenagers. When Mo Chenga saw them, she almost sprayed out the tea in her mouth. Why are you two here? With Hanjian here, do you still need to work for others? These two people were Zhan Bai's sworn siblings, Xiaoguzi and Xiaozue. Kuang Zhu had long formed his gold core. Zhan Bai was currently in closed-door meditation and was said to have succeeded, but he hadn't come out yet. Core formation cultivators could open their own immortals' caves and recruit disciples and attendants. With these two backing them, they didn't need to look for errands like other foundation-building cultivators. Xiaoguzi chuckled. Grandmaster Qingwei, how could you be someone else? In any case, we're old friends. Besides, this is a good job. Running errands for two nascent soul Taoists, who knows how many people would fight over it. We borrowed Senior Marshal Brother Kuang Zhu's name and went to Marshal Aunt Bingxin's place to get this job. Stinky brat, how dare you ruin my image? Luo Fengxue glared at him with a smile, then turned to Mo Chenga. They were driven out by Senior Marshal Brother Hanjian. When he heard I was looking for someone to take care of your immortals' cave, Senior Marshal Brother Hanjian dragged them to me. I thought they could be considered your acquaintances, so they're better than strangers. Mo Chenga stared at them. How did you offend Hanjian? Xiaoguzi rubbed his nose. Senior Marshal Brother Kuang Zhu said we're not ambitious. We're already more than 100 years old, but we still act like teenagers. He even said that we were so lazy because we stayed by his side, so he kicked us out. Good kick. Luo Fengshua clapped and said, "Look at you two. How long have you been in the foundation building realm?" Each of them was lazier than the last in their cultivation. Originally, your senior martial brother Bai's cultivation base wasn't much higher than yours, but now he's about to form his core. You're just barely in the middle foundation establishment stage. Zaiguzi said, "What's so good about being like senior martial brother Bai?" "It's all about cultivation, alchemy and medical skills. I'm going crazy just thinking about it. In any case, we're not cut out for cultivation." Xiaozue chimed in from the side. Martial Uncle Bingxin built her foundation earlier than Grandmaster Qingwei, and now Grandmaster Qingwei is already a nascent soul cultivator. Martial Uncle Bingxin also formed her gold core not long ago. Luo Fengshue was rendered speechless. Among these two guys, Zaiguzi was mischievous, while Xiaozue was straight to the point. It really wasn't easy to win against them verbally. Seeing this, Mo Chenga really wanted to laugh. Luo Fengshue didn't have many moments where she was rendered speechless. "Grandmaster Qingwei, please accept us. We don't have anywhere else to go," Zaiguzi said. The two of them stared at her with sparkling eyes. Mo Chenga said, "You can't be lazy while you're here. Everything in the cave must be handled in an orderly manner. You'll also be responsible for the trivial matters related to the various peaks." Zaiguzi patted his thin chest and said, "Grandmaster, rest assured. I'm the best at welcoming and sending people off. Xiaozue knows how to take care of things best. Just leave it to us. Grandmaster doesn't need to worry at all." Mo Chenga shifted her gaze and saw Luo Fengshue nodding at her, so she said, "All right, I'll keep you here for the time being. If you do well, you'll get medicinal pills, magic weapons and everything else. If you don't, you'll have to go back to Hanhou." The two of them jumped up and high-fived each other. Then they earnestly thanked her. "Thank you, Grandmaster Qingwei." Since the decision had been made, Mo Chenga summoned Shui Linbua and told her to hand over all the affairs of the cave to the two siblings while she prepared to enter closed-door meditation. In addition, she sent a message to call Feifei back. Although it had taken human form, it had taken advantage of White Tiger's breath, so its cultivation level wasn't high enough. As for little Feng, her injuries hadn't healed yet, so it wasn't time for her to enter closed-door meditation. Little Feng also went to the steward's hall to ask for an identity tablet. The inquiry elder's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Little Feng had taken human form in the 8th rank, so Shanqing School had one more nascent soul cultivator. The stone door opened, and Mo Chenga stepped into the stone room. The two people in the stone room looked up and saw her. One was happy while the other was depressed. "Greetings to Grandmaster Qingwei." The two of them saluted her. Mo Chenga nodded and sat down on the stone platform in the middle. "How was it?" Ewan was the happy one. He first held up a formation disc and presented it to her. "Disciple is slow-witted. I could only think of this method to crack it." Mo Chenga turned to Shisu. "What about you?" Shisu's eyes were lifeless and she looked exhausted, but now she calmed down. She picked up a book beside her and said, "This formation is extremely exquisite. Disciple's attainments and formations aren't high enough, so Disciple is willing to admit defeat if I can only dismantle these changes of yin and yang and the 5 elements." Mo Chenga took the book and read the formation disc and the book. A moment later she looked up. Shisu had already given up. She lowered her head and looked very sad. Ewan looked at her nervously. The cracking method he submitted was only the result of his practice on the formation disc. He couldn't put it into practice here, so it was still unknown whether it could be cracked or not. Mo Chenga looked at Ewan and said, "This can indeed crack the burning sea shattering sun formation, but you didn't dismantle the original formation, so many parts are very stiff." Ewan was nervous, but he braced himself and explained, "Grandmaster, this formation is exquisite. 3 days isn't enough to dismantle it. Disciple couldn't think of anything else, so I acted on my own." Mo Chenga nodded slightly. "With your attainments and formations, 3 days really isn't enough to dismantle it." Ewan relaxed a little and heard her say, "Your method of breaking the formation can be counted as breaking the formation with the formation. It's just that it's too violent, it's no different from perishing together." His heart was in his throat again. Mo Chenga smiled. "However, although you took the shortcut, cracking it is cracking it. Being flexible is your strength. I'll keep my word and accept you as my registered disciple." Ewan was overjoyed and kowtowed. "Thank you, Grandmaster. Thank you, Grandmaster." Mo Chenga waved her hand to stop him from kowtowing. She then turned to Shisu and said, "From this dismantling, I can see your foundation is very solid. It's very rare for you to dismantle such a complicated formation without any mistakes. Unfortunately, you don't know how to be flexible and don't have enough time. You'd better focus on dismantling the original formation first. Shisu's heart sank even more. She knew she failed and missed this good opportunity. However, to learn formations one must have a strong will. One must not turn back until he hits the wall. Not knowing how to be flexible can also be said to be persistent. With this kind of willpower, one can definitely become a great formation master in the future. Emo Chinga stopped and looked at Shisu with a smile. I want to accept you as my registered disciple. Are you willing? Shisu was very surprised and her tired expression was swept away. Grandmaster. Is what Grandmaster said true? Why would I lie to you? Emo Chinga said, if you're willing, you can come here tomorrow. I'm willing. Shisu nodded like a chicken pecking rice. Emo Chinga put down the formation discs and books in her hands. You can go back and move here tomorrow. Yes, master. The two of them were overjoyed. After Ewen and Shisu moved here, Emo Chinga asked people to open 2 stone rooms next to the formation performing room for them to live in and teach them the transporting formation. After teaching them the transporting formation, she didn't have time to teach them personally, so she opened the formation performing room to them and let them study by themselves. This wasn't difficult for formation masters. Self-study was their main learning method. Several days later, Lord Taoist Huayan came back with Lord Taoist Jinghe. Emo Chinga thought that Lord Taoists of Shenqing School had been flying around Mount Taikang and Quanzhong City these days. Didn't they attract people's attention? As soon as they came back, they were summoned to Shangqing Palace. Even Lord Taoist Lingxi, who was really in closed-door meditation, was summoned. Upon seeing them, Lord Taoist Jinghe squinted at them. You two have a lot of secrets. Emo Chinga smiled. Master, you taught us not to show our wealth. Keeping it in our belly is our secret. Lord Taoist Jinghe snorted, but he couldn't hide the smile on his face. He was in a good mood because he just got a lot of precious and amazing resources. Lord Taoist Huayan said with a smile, Qingwei, you didn't make it clear. Your longevity pills didn't increase your lifespan by 100 years, but 500 years. Fortunately, none of us have taken longevity pills. Otherwise, it would be too painful to have treasures in front of us but not be able to enjoy them. Didn't I say that? Emo Chinga thought for a while. She didn't seem to have said that. Lord Taoist Huayan beamed. I thought I could try to reach the middle stage with more than 300 years of lifespan, but I felt something wrong after taking it. Senior brother Xinjiang tested it and found that it was 500 years of lifespan. With another 500 years of lifespan, I won't just be in the middle stage. Maybe I'll have a chance to advance to the late stage. The higher one's cultivation level was, the longer their lifespan would be. If Lord Taoist Huayan could advance to the middle stage, his lifespan wouldn't be as short as it was now. It was indeed possible for him to advance to the late stage. When she concocted the longevity pill for the first time, Emo Chinga thought the efficacy of this kind of ancient longevity pill was too amazing. 4 nascent soul cultivators, 500 years was enough time to change their fate. Yes, Xinjiang may have a chance to touch the deification realm, and I may also have a chance to cultivate to the peak of the late stage. Lord Taoist Jinghe was very happy. Now it's hard for our Shenqing school not to prosper. With our lifespan, we can wait until a group of nascent soul cultivators appear in our school. With these medicinal pills, the lifespan of the existing Lord Taoists of the nascent soul realm would increase, and the probability of a core formation master advancing to the nascent soul realm would also increase. They could almost imagine Shenqing school having more than a dozen nascent soul cultivators at the same time. Emo Chinga remembered Qin. She once said the medicinal herbs in the virtual sky world were enough to support a school to dominate the celestial pole. Now they had a chance to realize it. As they talked, Lord Taoist Lingxi arrived. Everyone saluted him and took their seats. Senior Marshal Brothers, why did you summon me? Lord Taoist Lingxi asked. Didn't you say we were pressed for time and we had to improve our strength as soon as possible? Lord Taoist Huayan said, it's about this. He took out a Qingkuan bag from his robe. Shoujing and Qingwei found a batch of supplies for the school. This is your share. Lord Taoist Lingxi was confused until he saw the things in the Qingkuan bag. He was shocked. Senior Marshal Brothers. Chapter 622. Lord Taoist Lingxi formed his nascent soul at the age of 200. With the help of his spiritual root, he was diligent and had many opportunities. However, no matter how many opportunities he had, He had never seen so many top-grade medicinal pills. Lord Taoist Huayan enthusiastically introduced to him, Lingxi, you probably haven't seen this before. This is the longevity pill. Unexpectedly, Lord Taoist Lingxi said, I've seen the longevity pill in my master's place, but it's of a higher grade. Oh. Lord Taoist Huayan remembered that his master, Lord Taoist Tianyun, had taken the longevity pill, but he died in the end. He said with a smile, this longevity pill is unusual. It can increase one's lifespan by 500 years. He said it casually, intending to shock Lord Taoist Lingxi. This time he finally got what he wanted. Lord Taoist Lingxi was so surprised that he couldn't speak. Really? Of course. 500 years. If this news gets out, I'm afraid the world will be shocked. Lord Taoist Lingxi calmed down immediately and thought of this. Yes, Lord Taoist Huayan said, not only the longevity pill but also other medicinal pills and spiritual herbs. 10,000 years of fruit, which can help people form their nascent souls, and some can even be used to break through the nascent soul realm. We might not be able to get these medicinal pills even if we risked our lives in the past. Besides, we also have the constitution-enhancing pill. It can be said that our cultivation progress and realms may increase to an incredible level. If these things are leaked, it will bring great trouble to the sect. There was no way the Tao Lords hadn't thought about what Tao Lord Rhino said. So, confidentiality is the top priority. The fewer people who know about this batch of materials, the better. As soon as Lord Taoist Jinghe finished speaking, Lord Taoist Lingxi wondered, who will know if we don't tell them? Lord Taoist Huayan shook his head. Lingxi, there's more than what we have. There's another batch. There's another batch? Lord Taoist Lingxi's eyes widened in surprise. Lord Taoist Huayan said, those things are not as precious as what we have, but they are much more valuable to the sect than what we have. Lord Taoist Lingxi was speechless. He knew the weight of the Chengkuan bag in his hand. If it was more than that, how valuable would it be? He stared at Mo Tiange and Qin Shi with admiration in his eyes. Senior Marshal Brother Shoujing, Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei, could it be that you've plundered some great ancient sect's collection? Lingxi's half-joking words made the two of them smile. With a smile, Mo Tiange said, how could the books and records of a great ancient cultivation group only contain these? Unfortunately, when we went to the returning ruin sea last time, we didn't manage to move that immortal palace's storehouse back. Otherwise, you little girl, you really don't know what greed is. Lord Taoist Jinghe blew his beard, pointed at Qin Shi and said, when this brat was in the foundation building realm, he discovered the remains of a great Middle Ages cultivation group. Several great cultivation groups divided a lot of resources, but those were only a few small storehouses. How could the storehouses of a great Middle Ages cultivation group be easily moved by others? The four of them talked among themselves, but none of them asked about the source of the resources. Mo Tiange felt at ease. She thought what Qin Shi said was right, they wouldn't insist on knowing where these treasures came from. She should have more confidence in the sect. Because of this batch of medicinal pills and spiritual herbs, the Lord Taoists made several decisions. First of all, Lord Taoist Huayan, who had enough lifespan, would return to the sect and enter closed-door meditation like them, trying to advance to the middle stage. Second, Lord Taoist Jinghe had to guard the sect for a long time and train disciples. It would be best if he could train a new generation of nascent soul Lord Taoists in the next few hundred years. As for Xianin and Miaoyi, they could only be temporarily sacrificed. Senior Marshal Brother, what about me? Lord Taoist Lingxi asked. Lord Taoist Huayan said, the three of you just focus on cultivation as before. Senior Marshal Brothers and sisters are all busy, but I don't care about anything. I even got so many treasures for free. Lingxi, Lord Taoist Jinghe interrupted him, you're the disciples with the most promising prospects in the sect. The advancement of your cultivation level is the enhancement of the sect's strength, and you're also working for the sect. Don't think too much and just focus on closed-door meditation. And you too. Lord Taoist Jinghe turned to Mo Tiange and Qin Shi. I heard you said you're in closed-door meditation, but there are people coming and going in your caves. What's going on? Qin Shi said, Master, since we're in closed-door meditation, we naturally have to deal with trivial matters first. You have so many trivial matters? Lord Taoist Jinghe looked at Mo Tiange. You accepted 2 formation masters as registered disciples. Do you want to pass on what you've learned? Mo Tiange nodded and said, I always feel that I won't have this leisure in the future. I'm not like Senior Marshal Brother Xinjiang and Senior Marshal Brother Huayan who have many disciples and inheritance. If I don't pass them on now, I'm afraid I won't be able to pass on what I've learned. Lord Taoist Huayan sighed. Qingwei, it's Xianqing School's good fortune that you think like this. Mo Tiange didn't know whether it was Xianqing School's good fortune or not, but she just thought it was the right thing to do. The Lord Taoists exchanged some information before going back to their respective caves. When they returned to their caves, she saw Mo Tiange had a lot on her mind, so he asked, "What's wrong?" Mo Tiange shook her head and then nodded. "I'm thinking, who should I pass the art of engineering to?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, he sighed and reached out to touch her head. "How about we also start accepting disciples?" Mo Tiange was a bit hesitant. "We might not have much time in the future. Is it okay to accept disciples?" She said, "You're overcomplicating things. There's a Tao-seeking palace in the sect that's responsible for teaching disciples. Except for handymen, outer disciples, and inner disciples who don't have a master, elite disciples whose masters are in closed-door meditation are also under the jurisdiction of the Tao-seeking palace. Your cultivation technique is unique, and master has never been in closed-door meditation, so you haven't experienced that stage. We all went through it like this." Oh. Mo Tiange thought he was right. High-level cultivators and closed-door meditation could easily last for years or even decades. Didn't they care about their disciples? She asked again, "Who in the Tao-seeking palace is in charge of the elite disciples? What realm are they in?" She said, "According to the usual practice, the Tao-seeking palace's technique imparting elders are all experienced core formation cultivators, so under normal circumstances, even if the elite disciples are core formation cultivators, they can still handle it. Besides, core formation cultivators have nascent soul Taoists to guide them regularly, so it's not a big problem. Junior martial brother Lingxi is an example. He doesn't have a master, and for many years he's been guided by his senior martial brothers and sisters in turn." She paused and smiled again. You advanced too fast. You haven't experienced the stages that many disciples have gone through, so you don't know." "I see." Mo Tiange suddenly understood. "That's right. Big sects have a perfect system, so they should have ways to deal with all kinds of situations. So if you want to pass on your knowledge, you can start to accept disciples. When we have time in closed-door meditation, we can give them some pointers. First, as elite disciples, they must have the ability to be independent. Second, the sect will consider everything and won't hold them back." Mo Tiange thought for a long time and finally made a decision. "All right, in that case, let's also start accepting disciples." Once Mo Tiange made her decision, the whole Xianqing school became busy. Lord Taoist Shoujing and Lord Taoist Qingwei are going to accept disciples. This news spread to the 6 peaks in no time. Disciples from each peak who had connections but didn't started to take action. They inquired about the news, asked for favors, and even directly came to the sect. Fortunately, Zaiguzi and Xiaozue were really capable, so they didn't need to worry about these things. Martial nephew Zhan. A white-haired, sage-like old cultivator called out to the youngster in front of him with a cordial smile. Zaiguzi turned around. When he saw the cultivator, he immediately came to greet him. "Isn't this Martial Uncle Yenemo? A distinguished guest has come to visit. No wonder the magpies kept chirping today. Martial Uncle, Zaiguzi sends his greetings to you." The old cultivator waved his hand. "Martial nephew Zhan is too polite. I'm not a distinguished guest." "Of course you're a distinguished guest, Martial Uncle Yenemo." The two of them flattered each other for a while before Master Taoist Yenemo slowly got to the point. "I heard Martial Uncle Shoujing and Martial Uncle Qingwei want to accept disciples. Does Martial nephew Zhan have any unique information?" As he spoke, he took something out of his sleeve and stuffed it into Zaiguzi's hand. Zaiguzi understood tacitly and took it. He said with a smile, "Zaiguzi only takes care of the 2 Grandmasters' caves, so how could I have any unique information? However..." He lowered his voice and said mysteriously, "Martial nephew and Grandmaster Qingwei are old friends, so I know a little about her temperament and preferences." Master Taoist Yenemo also came closer and handed him another package. "I'll have to trouble Martial nephew Zhan." Zaiguzi thought for a moment, then said, "Grandmaster Qingwei is the most low-key and amiable person, so she doesn't like arrogant disciples. When it comes to accepting disciples, first, the disciple must have a good temperament and mustn't be too arrogant. Second, the disciple must be independent and mustn't rely too much on the elders. Third, it's best if the disciple understands formations." He looked at Master Taoist Yenemo and smiled. "As for the others, they must have good aptitude and a good temperament. I don't need to say more, right? Master Taoist Yen Mo understood. Oh, of course, Zaiguzi said, it's best if the disciple is young. After all, the two grandmasters are only 200 or 300 years old, aren't they? Master Taoist Yen Mo understood what he meant. He said, of course it's not me. I'm already so old, yet I still want to worship the two martial uncles as my masters. Zaiguzi chuckled. Martial uncle is thinking for the sake of the younger generation. It's human nature, human nature. Then martial uncle Shoujing, Zaiguzi said, Grandmaster Shoujing's temperament is similar to Grandmaster Qingwei's. Besides, if Grandmaster Qingwei is satisfied, why would Grandmaster Shoujing say no? Zaiguzi winked at him. Master Taoist Yen Mo acted as if he suddenly realized something. I understand. The two of them continued to flatter each other for a while before Master Taoist Yen Mo left, feeling satisfied. Zaiguzi stroked the Qingkuan bag in his hand. He was extremely proud of himself. A core formation master is indeed generous. Big brother? Xiaozue, who was standing behind him, frowned. You casually accepted other people's things. What would you do if the two grandmasters found out? Zaiguzi waved his hand carelessly. Do you think the two grandmasters won't know I'm accepting things? If I don't accept things, how can I get rid of these flies? The two grandmasters are well aware of this. As long as we properly carry out the task the grandmasters gave us and don't delay their business, they won't haggle over it. You found out again? Aya, don't worry. Zaiguzi gave her a Qingkuan bag. Besides, between the two of us, do we even need to distinguish who's who? Isn't what's mine yours? After taking the Qingkuan bag, Xiaozue muttered with satisfaction, You're right. Chapter 623. After bustling about for 2 months, the apprenticeship event finally came to an end. The two Lord Taoists accepted 3 disciples in total. One was Lord Taoist Shoujing's disciple, and the other 2 were Lord Taoist Qingwei's disciples. The 3 disciples were all in the foundation building realm. Each of them had a different temperament, but they were all resolute, quick-witted, and intelligent people. During the apprenticeship event, Zaiguzi spread the news about what kind of disciples the 2 Lord Taoists liked and what requirements they had. This made it a lot less troublesome for them to choose disciples, so they didn't have to send a lot of messy candidates. Because of this, they specially rewarded the siblings with a top-grade magic tool each, which made them so happy that they could only see their teeth. The 2 of them made a lot of money from this apprenticeship event. When people from all walks of life came to inquire about the news, they felt embarrassed not to send them a few good things. All in all, it was a huge fortune for them. Moreover, with the 2 of them here, as long as they finished their business, the 2 grandmasters wouldn't care about what they did. It was much more comfortable than living with Guangzhou. It'd be great if it could always be like this. On a protruding rock on the surface of the extreme abyss pool, Zaiguzi stretched his body, feeling extremely happy. Isn't that right? Senior Marshal Brother Guangzhou always told us to be diligent and cultivate. The 2 of us aren't cut out for that. Xiaozue carried a basket and walked to his side. The 2 of them took out a grill, bamboo skewers, firewood, and all kinds of seasonings from the basket. In the end, they took out several pieces of beast meat and started barbecuing. So you're here. A voice rang out next to them. Yijinji rubbed his nose and walked over. It smells so good. Share it with me. As he said that, he took a well-cooked piece of beast meat from the basket and stuffed it into his mouth. Marshal Uncle Yi. Zaiguzi said, You're really friendly. Yijinji didn't care at all. He said with a smile, It's just a few pieces of beast meat. Why are you so stingy? Xiaozue stopped barbecuing. He tilted his head and stared at Yijinji for a long time before he suddenly said, Marshal Uncle Yi, is something bothering you? Yijinji swallowed the barbecued meat in 2 or 3 bites, then scooped some water from the pool to wash his hands. How did you know? I know just by looking at you. Zaiguzi bumped his arm. If you're like this, I'll know. Yijinji rolled his eyes at him but didn't say anything. Yes, Marshal Uncle Yi, Xiaozue said, looking at you, no one else told you about this, right? Yijinji rolled his eyes at her. After a while he said, And Master wants me to enter seclusion to form my gold core. In that case, I'll form my gold core, said Zaiguzi casually as he ate the roasted meat. That's right, core formation is a good thing. Yijinji paused for a moment then said, But I don't have much confidence. You still don't have confidence? Little Zue asked curiously. Marshal Uncle, you're the disciple of the most outstanding nascent soul cultivator in Shenqing School. Yi Zhenji showed a bitter smile. It's precisely because I'm Auntie's and Master's disciple that my aptitude is ordinary. If it weren't for Auntie and Master's care and if it weren't for me being diligent, how could I be where I am today? Both of them are heaven-bestowed geniuses, but Master was right that day. At my age, Auntie has already entered closed-door meditation to form her nascent soul, and Master has also reached the peak stage of the core formation realm, but I haven't even crossed the barrier of the core formation realm. Once Yi Zhenji finished speaking, his mood became gloomy. He understood the principle of accumulating experience and understood that his aptitude was ordinary, so he wanted to accumulate more experience before entering closed-door meditation to form his gold core. But now his master wanted him to form his gold core earlier. He really didn't have enough confidence in himself. In the end he heard Xiaoguzi say, "Martial Uncle Yi, you're so strange. If you can be compared with them casually, would they still be heaven-bestowed geniuses? You're not even 200 years old yet, so you're even younger than us. Most elite disciples form their gold core at around 200 years old, right? Some can't even form their gold core their whole lives." But Yi Zhenji was speechless for a long time. "I'm Auntie and Master's disciple. If you're their disciple, do you have to be the same as them? There are so many nascent soul Lord Taoists in our school, but I don't see any Lord Taoist disciple who's already in the nascent soul realm," little Zue said, and even commented, "I think you're just making trouble for yourself over nothing." Yi Zhenji felt depressed that he had been struggling for several months, but in the end he was criticized by this brother and sister pair as worthless. "Martial Uncle Yi." Xiaoguzi pressed his shoulder and said, "Just relax. You have your own path, so why do you care so much? Look at me and little Zue, we're practically idling around waiting to die. Senior Martial Brother Kuangzhu even said we're wasting Mount Taikong's spiritual aura if we're alive. Did you hear that from your sworn brother? You've only been criticized by your master. What's the big deal?" Did Senior Martial Brother Hanjian really say that? That's right. Little Zue didn't take his words to heart and started counting with his fingers. Every month he teaches us a lesson, every 10 days he urges us to cultivate, and every day he sends someone to monitor our cultivation. Look, is this how humans live their lives? Then the two of you? Yi Zhenji felt extremely strange. Then why were they still so carefree? "We just don't like cultivating," Xiaoguzi said. "Everyone has their own aspirations. I think it's enough for us to cultivate to the foundation building realm and live for 300 to 400 years, watching the mountains and rivers every day. As for forming our gold cores, we don't have such aspirations and we don't have such good aptitudes." Little Zue added, "In your opinion, shouldn't we go out and die?" Their 4 eyes stared at him. Yi Zhenji was at a loss. "Then do you want to form your gold core?" Xiaoguzi asked. Yi Zhenji nodded without hesitation. "Of course. Then it's settled." Little Zue shrugged. "If you want to form your gold core, form your gold core. If you fail, form it again. In any case, you have a good master and aunt, so it's already much easier for you than for other people. Why do you have to think about those useless things?" Upon hearing this, Yi Zhenji felt enlightened. "That's right. If I fail, I can try again." He stood up abruptly, then disappeared like a wisp of smoke. "I'm going to cultivate." Upon seeing his figure disappearing, Xiaoguzi and little Zue giggled and high-fived each other. "He's finally gone. There's one less person to share meat with." Zhenji's in closed-door meditation, Qinshi said. Emo Tienga frowned slightly. "He entered closed-door meditation in such a hurry. Will there be a problem?" "It's fine," Qinshi said. "Let him try. If he fails, he'll know what his flaws are." "That's the only way." "What about Linbua?" Qinshi asked. "Linbua told me that he'll also enter closed-door meditation after dealing with the last bit of business." Qinshi nodded slightly. "That's good. Feifei will be back soon, right?" "And he'll be back in a few days." Emo Chinga paused and said, "Xiaohua and Xiaofan are already in the 7th rank. They're quite obedient, so we don't need to worry about them." "That's good." They didn't need to worry about anyone, so they could focus on their new disciples. Only after they brought them into the sect could they enter closed-door meditation with peace of mind. This time, without prior consultation, they all chose foundation establishment disciples. First, core formation cultivators mostly had a master, and those who didn't have a master were too old. Second, core formation cultivators mostly had chosen a cultivation technique and had their own Dao. Foundation building cultivators, on the other hand, had just entered the sect, so their Dao was like a blank piece of paper that could be used at will. Third, foundation building disciples were more obedient than core formation cultivators. As for the other requirements, most of them were the same as what Zaiguzi said, but the candidates were beyond everyone's expectations. The disciples Mo Chenga accepted were a man and a woman. The man's name was Xie Jingyi, and the woman's name was Qi Yunshu. Both of them had just entered the foundation building realm not long ago and were in their 30s. As for elite disciples, their age of entering the foundation building realm was neither too early nor too late, and their aptitudes weren't the best. They both had relatively ordinary double spiritual roots. They were chosen mainly because of a few points. Xie Jingyi came from a small cultivation clan with an ordinary background. He had a steady character, could endure loneliness, and had a foundation in formation, so he was the best candidate to learn the art of machineries. Qi Yunshu, on the other hand, had a special constitution. The yin inside her body flourished while the yang spiritual aura in her body almost reached the point where she couldn't retain any yang spiritual aura. Because of this, Mo Chenga felt Qi Yunshu should be a very good successor of the art of Sunu. Moreover, Qi Yunshu was a man of few words, so Mo Chenga, who liked peace and quiet, was very satisfied. As for Qin Shi, he originally didn't want to accept disciples. After all, Yi Jinji was his disciple. However, during the selection process he met a good candidate, so he accepted him. That person's name was Sang Yushu. He was a bit older, almost 100 years old, but his cultivation level had been stuck in the early stage of the foundation building realm. His spiritual roots were also ordinary. He didn't even have double spiritual roots, but rather 3 spiritual roots. Logically speaking, with such conditions he couldn't even be considered an elite disciple. Core formation cultivators wouldn't want to accept him as a disciple, but Qin Shi took a fancy to him. The reason was the same as Qi Yunshu's. Sang Yushu's constitution was extremely young, so he couldn't retain yin aura. Because of this, his cultivation progress was extremely slow. It was said that when he registered to participate in the selection, many cultivators in the same batch laughed at him for overestimating his own capabilities. Unexpectedly, he defeated a group of cultivators with superior aptitudes and noble backgrounds and became Lord Taoist Shou Jing's second disciple. Those cultivators who laughed at him regretted it so much that their intestines turned green. They thought, since even Sang Yushu was chosen, I presumably have a better chance. How could I miss this opportunity? However, they never thought that every single disciple eliminated by Sang Yushu was much more outstanding than them. After the selection ended, the 3 disciples packed their luggage and moved into their Immortals Cave in Extreme Abyss Valley. With disciples and attendants, Lord Taoist Shou Jing and Lord Taoist Qingwei finally had the air of nascent soul cultivators. Inside the hall, the 3 disciples cautiously stood in front of them. The 3 of them had one thing in common: their aptitudes weren't that outstanding, and their backgrounds were also relatively ordinary. This time, even they didn't dare to believe they were chosen by Lord Taoist Shou Jing to become their disciples. Mo Chenga stared at her 2 disciples. Xie Jingyi looked like he was in his early 20s. His posture was tall and straight, his eyes were clear, and his outward appearance was excellent. It could be said that he had the standard appearance of a disciple from a prestigious cultivation group. As for Qi Yunshu, her appearance wasn't outstanding. Her appearance was ordinary and she was thin and silent. Compared to Shisu, she was much worse. However, her temperament was calm. In front of 2 Lord Taoists, she wasn't the slightest bit timid and had a unique charm. "Are you all ready?" she asked. "Yes, Grandmaster." Xie Jingyi cupped his hands. The apprenticeship ceremony hadn't been held yet, so right now, he could only call her Grandmaster. Qi Yunshu also nodded. "Yes." Sang Yushu remained silent and only lowered his head. The one asking the question wasn't his master, so he didn't need to answer. "Then go and rest first. Tomorrow is the apprenticeship ceremony. In the future you'll be my official disciples." The 2 of them answered in unison, "Yes, disciple obeys." Xie Jingyi and Qi Yunshu withdrew, but Sang Yushu still stood there silently. Qin Shi looked at him and asked, "Are you wondering why I picked you?" Sang Yushu hesitated for a moment then nodded. "Yes, disciple's aptitude is ordinary. In Grandmaster's opinion, I can even be considered poor. I'm not outstanding in any other aspect. Why did Grandmaster pick me?" Qin Shi smiled and said, "I picked you because first, you're suitable to cultivate my cultivation technique. Second, your mentality is very stable and you're very upright. Even though you're almost 100 years old and are still stuck in the foundation building realm, you're still calm and don't belittle yourself. On the path of the great Tao, although aptitude is important, mentality is even more important." Seeing Sang Yushu's expression of sudden realization, Qin Shi said, "However, your aptitude is much worse than the elite disciples and you're far behind them. If you don't work hard, you won't be able to reach the end." Yes. Sang Yushu's expression turned serious. "Disciple will definitely be strict with myself and won't slack off." Qin Shi smiled. "Whether you're qualified to be my advanced inner disciple or even my direct disciple is still unknown. Work hard and prove yourself with facts." Chapter 624. The next day the apprenticeship ceremony was very simple. They didn't even go to Clear Spring Peak's Tranquil Heart Hall. Instead they just stayed in the Immortals' Cave, pouring tea, paying respect to their master, and listening to their master's teachings. The three of them were only inner disciples, so they didn't have the qualifications to hold a Grand Master Apprenticeship ceremony. Mo Chinga's own Master Apprenticeship ceremony was also very simple. She didn't even have a title. One day Lord Daoist Jinghe called her over, offered her a cup of tea, and that was it. As for Qin Shi, there was no need to mention him at all. In addition, Shui Limbo was also called over to offer tea to him. She had been in charge of the cave residents for all these years and had been conscientious. Now that there was a new disciple entering the sect, she, as the first one to enter the sect, could no longer be a registered disciple. After the ceremony, the three disciples chose their own cultivation rooms. Qi Yunshu and Xie Jingyi chose a house near them, while Sang Yushu chose the wooden house beside the extreme abyss pool. The following days were dull. It was nothing more than cultivation and teaching disciples. A few days later, Feifei returned. The first thing he said upon entering the extreme abyss valley was, "Why are there so many people?" Zai Guzi greeted him. "Are you Martial Uncle Feifei?" Feifei nodded and looked at him in confusion. Zai Guzi said, "We're deacons who take care of the two Grandmasters' caves. This is my younger sister Xiaozue." He then pointed at Sang Yushu next to him. "This is Grandmaster Shou Jing's newly accepted disciple. Grandmaster Qingwei accepted 4 disciples and is currently teaching them." Oh. Feifei flicked his sleeves. "He's actually accepting a disciple. How troublesome." As he spoke, he entered the cave. Not long after he entered the cave, he saw a beautiful woman in her mid-20s sitting leisurely in the hall, making tea. "Who are you?" Feifei looked her up and down. "You look familiar." The woman glanced at him. "You don't recognize me?" Feifei carefully sensed it and was shocked. "You're Xiaofeng?" Xiaofeng smiled and pointed at the table opposite her. "Do you want some tea?" Making tea was Feifei's specialty, so she didn't refuse. She sat down and drank a cup. "Not bad, but it's not as good as mine." Xiaofeng glanced at the tea set. "Then you do it?" When Mo Chinga came out, the two of them were making tea and drinking tea in harmony, which made her dumbfounded. "What's going on? Is it raining red?" Mo Chinga raised her head to look. Unfortunately, she couldn't see the sky inside the cave. These two fellows had very strong personalities. How could they get along so well? Feifei rolled her eyes at her and said, "Could it be that you want us to fight as soon as we meet and tear down the cave?" Mo Chinga said, "You don't want to fight because you can't win, right?" Feifei was easily defeated. It had to admit that it, who had just reached the 7th level, could not defeat Little Phoenix, who had transformed and had a pure bloodline. Xiaofeng smiled faintly and said, "There are almost no divine beasts left in this world. It's rare to find one of our kind, so why the need to fight and kill?" Since they could think that way, Mo Chinga couldn't wait to see them fight like Hua Feifei did when they first met. If that happened, would they still be able to live in the future? However, calling Feifei back was not to let him drink tea. Mo Chinga casually pulled him into the virtual sky world. "Enough with the idle talk. Enter closed-door meditation." "Hey, why should I go into closed-door training? It's not just you. Lil Fire and Lil Fan, go into seclusion and don't leave until you're at the 8th step." "Hey!" Mo Chinga threw him into the cultivation room and said, "The world is in chaos and the world is changing. Are you going to cultivate or not?" Feifei was stunned. "What?" "It's what the Lord Divine Beast you revere said." "Huh?" Feifei was even more confused. Mo Chinga was too lazy to explain to him. She went out and pulled Little Phoenix inside. "Explain to him." Then she went out. ******. This cultivation technique is called the Pure Yang technique. It's a cultivation technique specially cultivated by people with pure Yang constitutions. I've seen your original cultivation technique. It's only ordinary and won't help your constitution. You'd better switch to this cultivation technique. Sang Yushu took the jade slip that slowly flew towards him. After reading it for a bit, he was shocked and immediately knelt down. "Thank you, Master, for your reward." Although his aptitude wasn't good, his vision was very accurate. This cultivation technique was very exquisite and could be considered the top cultivation technique in Shenqing school. If it was before, he wouldn't have been able to obtain this kind of cultivation technique in his entire life. Qin Shi waved his hand and pointed at a small tray next to him. On it was a bag of spirit stones, several jade bottles, and a magic tool. "This is prepared for you. Although the disciple's share is not small, your foundation is too poor and your aptitude isn't good, so it's far from enough. This is a year's worth of spirit stones and medicinal pills. This should be enough for you to cultivate for a year. As for this magic tool, it's something I obtained in the past. It can be used to attack and defend and has endless wonderful uses. Study it carefully." "Yes, disciple obeys." Sang Yushu respectfully kowtowed. Qin Shi nodded slightly. "Remember the cultivation technique in your heart. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me again." "Yes, disciple will take his leave." Sang Yushu kowtowed and left. Qin Shi only accepted him as a disciple, so it was the simplest. Mo Chenga, on the other hand, was much busier. In the morning she explained formations to Yi Wen and Shi Su. In the afternoon she taught Xie Jingyi the art of engineering. Qi Yunshu's path was completely different from theirs, so she had to teach her separately. After being busy like this for a month, Yi Wen and Shi Su already understood all kinds of changes in the transporting formation. Mo Chenga gave them the Xuanji formation book and told them to study it on their own while preparing for the transporting formation. Lord Taoist Jinyang was very happy to learn that they could build a transporting formation. With the transporting formation, Shenqing school could attack and defend at will, and the possibility of preserving the sect would greatly increase. As for Xie Jingyi, he was a very serious and rigorous person. He almost had no hobbies and was also willing to endure boring tasks. When it came to learning the art of engineering, he was so focused that even Mo Chenga felt she was inferior to him. After spending several months teaching him the tricks of the art of engineering and leaving him a large amount of spirit stones to buy materials and a batch of crystal soul jades to experiment with, Mo Chenga finally let him study by himself. Of course, she didn't let him put aside his cultivation. She gave him the qualification to enter the ancient records room and let him choose a suitable cultivation technique for himself. As for Qi Yunshu, Mo Chenga spent even more time and energy on her. The art of Sunu was a cultivation technique created especially for pure Yin female cultivators. Although Qi Yunshu's constitution was close to Yin, she wasn't pure Yin, so she needed to be guided step by step. Sang Yushu was also like this, but Qin Shi only had to take care of him, so it was much easier. Qi Yunshu was a taciturn but extremely decisive person. She realized her previous cultivation technique wasn't suitable for the art of Sunu, so she didn't hesitate to dissolve her previous techniques layer by layer and switch to practicing the art of Sunu. This made Mo Chenga very satisfied. The art of Sunu was a pure cultivation technique, so the person who practiced it also had to have a pure mind. In this way, a year passed. Qi Yunshu and Sang Yushu both entered the art of Sunu, so they could cultivate on their own. Their cultivation techniques were quite special. Before they entered closed-door meditation, Mo Chenga and Qin Shi warned them to ask Lord Taoist Jinghe if they couldn't get pointers from the Tao-seeking palace. As grandmasters, they should teach their grand disciples to the best of their abilities. The two of them were both surprised and delighted to be able to ask a great cultivator at the late nascent stage. After solving Qi Yunshu and Sang Yushu's problems and dealing with all the trivial matters, they officially entered the virtual sky world for closed-door meditation. Before that, Yi Jinji and Shui Linbo were all in closed-door meditation. Feifei, Xiaohua, and Xiaofan were all focused on cultivating. Except for Xiaofeng, their whole family was in closed-door meditation. ****** in the virtual sky world's cultivation room. 4 jade slips floated between the two of them. Mo Chenga said, "I've thought about it. The problem of the pure yang technique isn't difficult to solve. My art of Sunu should have also been modified. The reason why I could cultivate in the virtual sky world so smoothly was because of the record of the primordial chaos. If I combined the art of Sunu and the record of the primordial chaos into the Sunu art of the origin, the problem of the art of Sunu's slow progress in the virtual sky world would be solved." Qin Shi said thoughtfully, "So, I can combine the pure yang technique and the art of 3 primordial cycles into one?" Mo Chenga nodded. "Our cultivation levels weren't high enough before, but now that we're high enough and have a deeper understanding of the essence of cultivation techniques, it's a bit difficult for us, but it's not impossible." Then, What about the yin and yang dual cultivation technique? Mo Chenga smiled. I practiced the Sunu art of the origin, and you practice the art of 3 primordial cycles, which is also 1 yin and 1 yang, so it's no different from the yin and yang dual cultivation technique. She thought about it and understood. So, we can also practice yin and yang dual cultivation by combining the Sunu art of the origin and the art of 3 primordial cycles with the art of 3 primordial cycles. Exactly. Mo Chenga paused. Of course, this is just my speculation. Whether it's feasible or not, we'll have to try it first. Then let's try it. She did as he said. He reached out and took the jade slips of the pure yang technique and the art of 3 primordial cycles. His mind was immersed in them and he began to study them step by step. In the Tiandao sect's branch in Kuanzhong City, an unknown secret discussion was taking place. Shenqing School has been making a lot of moves recently. What are they doing? Lu Dingyuan, who was sitting in the head seat, tapped the armrest lightly. He seemed to be talking to everyone but also seemed to be talking to himself. Even a small aura refining cultivator could see Tiandao sect's declining trend. Shenqing School's unstoppable rise was obvious to all cultivators in the celestial pole. For Tiandao sect's nascent soul cultivators, the most hateful thing was that this was happening right in front of their eyes, yet they couldn't stop it. A murderous intent flashed across Daoist Ji's eyes. If they want to stop without seeing any results, then we'll teach them a lesson. Lu Dingyuan cast a faint glance at him and said, How are you going to teach them a lesson? They're the same as us, 2 of them are in the late stage and 1 is in the middle stage. As a middle stage cultivator, isn't it natural for you to defeat several early stage cultivators? If we're talking about middle stage cultivators, are you sure you can defeat Qin Shoujing? Daoist Ji snorted. No matter how talented Qin Shoujing is, it's only been 100 years since he advanced to the nascent soul realm. The so-called middle stage nascent soul realm is only the result of Xinjiang Jinghe's forceful advancement. How powerful can he be? Junior Marshal Brother Ji. Lu Dingyuan shouted heavily. Didn't you notice that Qin Shoujing was very different from before when he came back from Yunzhong this time? Daoist Ji was stunned. He narrowed his eyes and recalled the feeling he had when he saw Qin Shi this time. Lu Dingyuan said, His aura was vigorous and solid, not much weaker than yours when you were in the middle stage of Junyan. Moreover, he had a sacred, vast, and destructive aura that could easily immobilize ordinary nascent soul cultivators. You and I both have to admit that Qin Shoujing is no longer the junior he used to be. Daoist Ji was speechless. Lu Dingyuan went on to say, No matter what Shenqing School is doing from the reports of our spies, there's no doubt that Shenqing School is working hard to improve its strength. They already have 8 nascent soul cultivators. Although Huayan is about to pass away, it won't be difficult for 1 or 2 nascent soul cultivators to appear in the next 200 or 300 years. If we're not careful and the number of nascent soul cultivators they have exceeds 2 digits, it'll be very difficult for us to rise again. Everyone was speechless. Junior Marshal Brother speechless. Lu Dingyuan suddenly turned to Lord Daoist speechless and said, You and Junior Marshal Brother Ji should go back to the sect. Take charge of the sect and focus on cultivating disciples. Lord Daoist's speechless eyes flashed. What about here? Sighing, Lu Dingyuan suddenly felt like he had aged. Supporting such a huge sect was simply too exhausting. We can only put aside the power of the Immortal Alliance. Tiandao sect is our foundation. Chapter 625. The 4 nascent soul realm cultivators of the Biyun sect were also having a secret discussion. In addition to the Wan Feng immortal couple, the Biyun sect also had Feng Ning and Qing Lan, 2 early-stage nascent soul cultivators. There was no need to talk about Feng Ning. With the strongest nascent soul couple in the celestial pole as her parents, it was only natural for her to form her nascent soul. Qing Lan, on the other hand, fought her way out from the low-level cultivators of the Biyun sect. She has ordinary aptitude and is a little older than Feng Ning. She has advanced to the realm of nascent soul earlier than Feng Ning. She is the junior that Luan and Feng Ning rely on very much and they believe that she will be the next chief. Feng Ning's character is not good enough. If she wants to be the chief, she will offend everyone. Ding Wan said, Shenqing School will definitely make a big move and we can't stop it. After all, we're not Tiandao sect, so we don't need to fight for the title of the number 1 sect. What we need to think about is how we should deal with Shenqing School next. Are you close or distant? Qing Lan thought for a while and said, I think it's better to get closer to him. Qing Lan said slowly, Our school spies reported that Shenqing School obtained a group of Fei in the Eastern Sea. These beasts are extremely good at finding treasures. Right now, groups of Shenqing School disciples are leaving the school with Fei and wandering around everywhere. They're definitely looking for resources to improve their strength. As for the nascent soul Lord Taoists in Shenqing School, needless to say, the three youngest ones are the most talented cultivators in recent years. It's very likely that they'll advance to the middle stage or even the late stage. With resources and manpower, Shenqing School's rise will be unstoppable. There's no harm in getting closer to them. Ding Wan and Feng Xiao could not help but nod. Shenqing School had always been upright and peaceful. It had strict school rules and had a good relationship with other cultivation groups. The nascent soul Lord Taoists of Shenqing School were also very good friends with the husband and wife. Similar secret discussions took place in various large sections. They could all see that the Shenqing School would rise strongly, but they all underestimated the extent of this strength. In the next few decades, Shenqing School's rising momentum could be said to be world-shaking. First of all, the number of core formation cultivators in Shenqing School increased explosively. Every few years someone would form his or her gold core. In just a few decades, the number of core formation cultivators in Shenqing School had climbed to 50. This might not be strange in Yunzhong, but in the Celestial Pole, it was unprecedented. When the number of core formation cultivators rose to a certain level, nascent soul cultivators would appear. This was a well-known principle in the cultivation world. Right now, they already understood that the number of nascent soul cultivators in Shenqing School definitely wouldn't stop at 8. This kind of rising momentum scared many cultivation groups, especially Tiandao sect. However, no matter what they did, they couldn't stop Shenqing School from growing stronger. In the third year of their closed-door meditation, Mo Tiange and Qin Shi completely fused the 4 cultivation techniques together and created a new cultivation technique. This cultivation technique focused on dual cultivation and was completely in line with their own characteristics, allowing them to achieve twice the result with half the effort. They still called this cultivation technique the yin-yang dual cultivation technique, but the inside was completely different. After creating the cultivation technique, the two of them temporarily came out of seclusion to guide their disciples. Yi-Wen and Shisu's attainments in array formations became more and more profound. They had already grasped the basics of the Xuanji array book. Of the two of them, one was experienced and knew how to be flexible, while the other was stubborn, but they reached the same goal by different means, and each had their own advantages in using the Xuanji formation book. Xie Jingyi, on the other hand, had the least to worry about. He had a very tenacious spirit, so he could disregard all distractions and focus on his own matters. In the past 3 years, he had thoroughly grasped the art of engineering in this realm. His foundation was even more solid than Mo Tiange's. After discovering this, Mo Tiange asked him to focus his energy on cultivating. Although he could also build core formation mechanisms without advancing to the core formation realm, the difficulty of doing so would be 10 times harder than advancing to the core formation realm on his own. As for nascent soul mechanisms, he had no way of doing so. Only when he advanced to the core formation realm could his understanding of spiritual aura reach a new realm. Mo Tiange hoped that even if Xie Jingyi couldn't form his nascent soul, he could at least advance to the core formation realm. Only then could he create nascent soul realm mechanical puppets and truly pass on the art of engineering. Fortunately, Xie Jingyi was very obedient. He immediately picked up the cultivation he had abandoned and began to cultivate without eating or sleeping. Mo Tiange discovered one of his shortcomings: he could only focus on one thing at a time. However, this wasn't a big problem. When Xie Jingyi advanced to the core formation realm, he could focus on the art of engineering. Then there were Qi Yunshu and Sang Yushu. Their characters were actually somewhat similar. They were both persistent and tenacious people. They handled things very decisively and didn't hesitate to do what they had to do. However, the two of them were different. Qi Yunshu was taciturn while Sang Yushu was reserved. In the past 3 years, the two of them had cultivated their respective cultivation techniques to a high level. Sang Yushu, in particular, had been stuck in the early stage of the foundation building realm for more than 50 years. He had accumulated a lot of experience and obtained a suitable cultivation technique. Unexpectedly, he advanced by leaps and bounds, easily breaking through the bottleneck and reaching the middle stage of the foundation building realm. Although Qin Shi gave him a lot of medicinal pills and spirit stones, his spiritual roots really weren't very good. To be able to achieve this kind of achievement, he must have been extremely diligent and didn't slack off in the slightest. Qi Yunshu was slightly worse. First, she had just built her foundation not long ago, so she basically didn't have any experience. Second, she was different from Sang Yushu. Her original cultivation technique had been erased. Now that she was cultivating it again, it would take her at least 10 years. From this, Qi Yunshu's determination could be seen. Even if she had to spend more than 10 years, she didn't hesitate to erase her cultivation technique after confirming it was useless. In addition, there was another piece of news. Yi Zhenji failed to form his gold core. The two of them had long been prepared for this, so they didn't feel disappointed. As long as he knew how to summarize, it was fine. He would eventually succeed in forming his gold core. After giving guidance to his disciple, they went to Shanqing Palace to pay a visit to Lord Taoist Jinghe. Lord Taoist Jinghe looked at their newly comprehended yin and yang dual cultivation technique and clicked his tongue in praise, expressing that he couldn't do any better. Later, Lord Taoist Jinghe told them that everything had been normal for the past 3 years and that the war had even relaxed a bit. After all, fighting consumed a lot of energy. It was the same for the righteous path, the devil path, and even the beast cultivators. They couldn't keep fighting at a high intensity all the time, so they had to relax appropriately to continue. This also showed that the so-called great chaos in the world might not come yet, so they had more time to prepare. After learning this news, the two of them went back to their closed-door meditation. This time, their closed-door meditation might take 10 years or even dozens of years. Inside the virtual Sky World's cultivation room, Mo Chenga and Qin Shi were sitting opposite each other. Both of them were meditating with their eyes closed. First, they adjusted their breaths, then their steps gradually became identical. In the end, the two of them breathed in and out together, rising and falling together as if they were one. As they breathed, pure yang spiritual aura and yin spiritual aura slowly spread out from their bodies until they condensed into one. Yang spiritual aura and yin spiritual aura intertwined, blended, and nourished each other, slowly growing stronger. However, their yin and yang spiritual aura contained a lot of personal things such as the aura of the origin, the light of 3 elements, and the divine beast's breath. Qin Shi's vermilion bird's breath had already merged with the spiritual aura in his body. His yang spiritual aura contained the vermilion bird's breath. Mo Chenga's azure dragon's breath was more obscure, but under the guidance of the vermilion bird's breath, it also spread out. The moment the vermilion bird's breath and the azure dragon's breath touched, something suddenly shone brightly, illuminating the whole virtual sky world and alarming the 3 spiritual beasts inside. The divine beast's breath. Fei Fei, who inherited the white tiger's breath, was the keenest. He immediately recognized that this was the breath of a divine beast. It was neither the azure dragon nor the vermilion bird, but a qilin. How could there be a qilin's breath? He looked at Mo Chenga's cultivation room hesitantly, but in the end, he didn't disturb them. When that light shone, the spiritual aura on Mo Chenga's and Qin Shi's bodies seemed to be pulled by something and surged towards the source of the light. The two of them opened their eyes in surprise and found a small thing floating between them. It was this thing that emitted a powerful momentum. "What's this?" Mo Chenga asked in surprise. Qin Shi was confused at first, then puzzled, but soon realization dawned on him. "It's the qilin bone. That piece of qilin bone." Mo Chenga's thoughts turned and she immediately thought of the qilin bone in Hupo's 6 Paths Palace. She asked, "Wasn't it taken away by Senior Hupo?" Qin Shi said, "After Hupo passed away, this piece of qilin bone didn't scatter with the wind, but it seemed to have lost all its spiritual aura and became dim and lightless, so they ignored it. I picked it up casually." "Lost its spiritual aura?" Mo Chenga stared at the piece of qilin bone. "How does this look like it's lost its spiritual aura?" The qilin bone suddenly stopped absorbing their spiritual aura. With a flash of light, a strong qilin's aura surged out and poured towards them. Oh! The two of them turned pale with fright. However, under the suppression of the qilin's aura, they couldn't move and could only watch helplessly as the qilin's aura poured into their meridians. Pain, this was the first thing Mo Chenga felt. Her meridians felt like they were being torn into a mess, and she couldn't suppress the pain. She remembered Master Taoist Yuanmu and Ling Yunhe's situation in the Vermilion Bird Sacrificial Temple. Could it be that she also had to go through that? She glanced at Qin Shi, hoping his yang spiritual bead could help again. Qin Shi understood what she meant and immediately stimulated his yang spiritual bead. A faint red light shone in his dantian. The qilin's aura paused for a moment, then rushed towards the yang spiritual bead. During this process, Qin Shi was also in unbearable pain. However, his meridians had experienced the vermilion bird's aura, so it wasn't particularly unbearable. This process lasted for half a day. Most of the qilin's aura rushed towards the yang spiritual bead, while a small part was still poured into Mo Chenga. However, with the young spiritual bead sharing the burden, she wasn't in too much pain. Why did it just focus on me? Emo Chinga said while clenching her teeth. Chin, she revealed a smile amidst the pain. Because I don't have an earth-type spiritual root. Emo Chinga was stunned, but she immediately understood. She had the spiritual root of the origin, so any kind of divine beast's aura could exist in her body. Chin, she didn't have an earth-type spiritual root, so the earth-type Qilin ignored him. Just as she slowly couldn't bear it anymore, the Qilin's aura gradually weakened, and the Qilin bone's light also gradually dimmed until it lost all its luster and fell down. The two of them finally regained their freedom and gasped for breath. Emo Chinga wanted to say something, but her meridians that were almost torn just now were in great pain. Not only did she choke on her words, but she also choked on her tears. Chin, she didn't absorb the Qilin's aura, so he didn't suffer as much as she did. He hastily reached out to support her. What's going on? Could it be that Amber's divine beast's aura is all in this Qilin bone? Chin, she also didn't know, but it seemed to be the case. Emo Chinga really couldn't sit still anymore. She lay down and said, "This won't do. My meridians hurt and my dantian is too swollen. I have to absorb this Qilin's aura." Chin, she felt a bit helpless, but when he thought about it, he also felt it was funny. They'd racked their brains to create a new yin and yang dual cultivation technique, but they actually encountered this kind of thing the first time they practiced it. Who knew that the Qilin bone that had lost its spiritual aura would actually absorb Amber's Qilin's aura? "It's okay. I'll help you. You can use my body to slowly absorb it." Chin, she helped her up. "Continue cultivating. Send the excess Qilin's aura to me and focus on absorbing a part of it." Emo Chinga endured the pain, nodded, and closed her eyes to cultivate. Chapter 626. This absorption actually took 10 years. This was something Emo Chinga didn't expect. She originally thought a few months like Chin Shi was enough. After thinking about it carefully, she felt it was reasonable. Chin Shi's cultivation technique was compatible with the vermilion bird's breath, so it was relatively easy for him to absorb it. As for her, she had never cultivated an earth attribute cultivation technique before. Although the spiritual roots of the origin and the art of the origin didn't reject it, it was difficult for her to fuse with it. Moreover, she absorbed more Qilin's breath than Chin Shi's vermilion bird's breath. With the yang spiritual bead, when he found it difficult to absorb, the vermilion bird's breath would automatically be stored in the yang spiritual bead, but she didn't, so she could only rely on herself to refine it bit by bit. Boom. After absorbing it to the extreme, Emo Chinga only felt that all the meridians in her body were torn, and her dantian was in intense pain. In this pain, her meridians and dantian were forcibly widened, and the Qilin's breath spread inch by inch until her whole body was filled again. This painful feeling lasted for a very, very long time. 10 years later, the Qilin's breath was finally completely absorbed, and the two of them stopped cultivating. Chin Shi also benefited a lot from helping her cultivate. During the fusion process, the yin spiritual aura and the aura of the origin in her body nourished his meridians, making the spiritual aura all over his body even purer. After withdrawing his spiritual aura, Chin Shi raised his head to look at Emo Chinga, but the next moment he was shocked. "You broke through?" After a long time, Emo Chinga finally calmed down. She looked at herself and felt her dantian, then said with great surprise, "I'm in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm?" This breakthrough was completely unexpected and unbelievably smooth. Even she didn't dare to believe it was true. Chin, she said with half envy and half joy, "How did you make a realm breakthrough so easily?" "When I advanced to the middle stage, not only did I spend 50 years cultivating non-stop, but I also had to rely on the 10,000-year-old spiritual fruit you left, as well as senior martial brother Xinjiang and master's help to break through to the middle stage. But because of this, I had some sequelae and my cultivation level wasn't stable." He looked at her carefully for a while and said, "Your spiritual aura is very thick, but your realm isn't very stable yet. After a few more years of seclusion, you'll be able to stabilize at the middle stage." Emo Chinga finally felt real. She said happily, "That's all thanks to that senior Hoopa. Who would have thought that his Qilin's breath didn't disperse but remained in that Qilin bone? In addition, it's also thanks to you. If you hadn't picked it up in passing, I wouldn't have had a fated chance like I did. If I wanted to advance to the middle stage, it would have taken me at least several dozen years." Chin Shi nodded with a smile. It could be said that Emo Chinga's realm breakthrough this time was a trick. But because of her cultivation technique and spiritual roots, and because she had him by her side to share the pain and nourish her body, She passed through this hurdle very smoothly. Compared to other people's realm breakthroughs, there wasn't much difference. Should I continue my seclusion? And she didn't hesitate at all. It won't be too late to leave closed-door meditation after you stabilize your realm. The two of them began to cultivate again. This time they finally succeeded in dual cultivation. The yin-yang dual cultivation technique circulated between the two of them, nourishing and blending with each other. Time flew by. Another 5 years passed. Mo Chinga's realm finally stabilized, and she also made great progress. The two of them decided to leave closed-door meditation. 15 years had passed, but the cave was still the same as before. There wasn't a single person in the hall. Mo Chinga spread her divine sense and saw that all the disciples were cultivating. Xiaoguzi and Xiaozue seemed to be eating barbecue by the extreme abyss pool again. These 15 years were the most delightful for them. Their master was in closed-door meditation, so they didn't interact with others. The disciples were also very independent and basically didn't order them around. They only needed to take care of the medicinal fields and spiritual plants and tidy up the collection room. They were so idle that they almost laid eggs. Mo Chinga and she didn't mind. As long as they didn't delay their business, they wouldn't interfere with what they did during other times. After the sound-transmitting talisman was sent out, Xiaoguzi and Xiaozue immediately cleaned up the barbecue and came in. Grandmasters, you've finished your closed-door meditation, Xiaoguzi said with a smile. She nodded slightly and sat down on the host's seat. Go and call them over. Martial uncles? Xiaoguzi said, I'll go right away. Right after he said that, he and Xiaozue went to call them over. After learning that their master had finished his closed-door meditation, the 4 disciples who stayed in the cave all put aside their own business and came to pay their respects. Yiwen and Shisu weren't in the cave. After they received Mo Chinga's formation inheritance, they had been busy with the sect, building transporting formations and teaching formation masters. Now they were indispensable figures in the sect. After Sang Yushu broke through to the middle stage, she traveled for several years and gained a lot. When she came back, she stayed in the wooden house in the extreme abyss pool, watching the waterfall every day and thinking about her Tao. Xie Jingyi and Qi Yunshu had been cultivating. Their foundations were weak, so it was time for them to accumulate experience and not for them to travel. Shui Linbua, after several years of closed-door meditation, successfully cultivated to the peak stage of the foundation-building realm. Now she was settling her mood and preparing to go out to find an opportunity to form her gold core. As for Yi Jinji, they finally heard good news. After failing to form his gold core, he threw himself into Xianqing School's affairs, honed his patience, went out to travel, and finally succeeded in forming his gold core not long ago. However, after stabilizing his realm, he left the school and went to Demonic Mountain. Mo Chinga was very pleased. Whether or not he could form his nascent soul in the future, Jinji finally embarked on his own Tao. Her promise to second uncle could be considered fulfilled. After Jinji formed his gold core, it would be his responsibility to train the descendants of the Yi family and support the Yi family. When the 4 disciples gathered, Shui Linbo was the first to notice something was wrong. She looked at Mo Chinga for a while and said in surprise, Auntie, you made a realm breakthrough? Foundation-building cultivators couldn't clearly feel the realm of nascent soul cultivators and could only judge by their spiritual aura. Shui Linbo had been with her for a long time, so she was the first to notice it. Mo Chinga nodded with a smile. I was lucky to break through to the middle stage. The 4 disciples were so surprised that they couldn't speak. They all knew Mo Chinga's age. This year, she was only 208 years old, right? It was said that the youngest person to form their nascent soul in the celestial pole was 206 years old, but she actually reached the middle stage of the nascent soul realm at 208 years old. After the initial shock, the 4 disciples knelt down and said, Congratulations to Master's wife Auntie, for advancing to the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. Mo Chinga nodded slightly. I've received your kind intentions. Get up. The 4 disciples stood up and waited respectfully at the side. They knew that it was time to check their cultivation progress. The 2 of them asked them one by one and were very satisfied with their cultivation progress. Then they gave them pointers and answered their cultivation problems one by one. After receiving their pointers, Sang Yushu and Qi Yunshu were suddenly enlightened in many areas. Even with Lord Daoist Jinghe's pointers, he hadn't practiced these 2 cultivation techniques, so some things could only be understood by those who had experienced it themselves. After asking about their current situation and giving pointers on their cultivation, the 2 of them dismissed the disciples and prepared to go out to meet their master. All these years, Lord Taoist Jinghe had stayed in the sect and hadn't taken a step out of Mount Taikong for more than 10 years. Because there was a great cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul realm who personally trained the disciples, the new disciples of Xianqing school were very outstanding in the past 10 years. A few years ago, because of Mo Chenga's batch of materials, many cultivators with rich accumulation had an opportunity. For a time, there were disciples advancing to the core formation realm every year. In the next few years, the momentum of core formation slowed down, but on average it was still very gratifying. As for those Feifei, their situation was also very good. They found a lot of materials, including ore veins, spiritual plants and spirit stones, which were just enough to ensure the supply of materials for low-level disciples. When they arrived at Shangqing Palace, Lord Taoist Jinghe's voice was already heard without the disciple on guard duty. The two brats finally came out of closed-door meditation. The two of them entered Shangqing Palace and saluted their master. Oh! Lord Taoist Jinghe looked around with rapt attention and suddenly found something was wrong. His gaze fixed on Mo Chenga and he stared at her with great astonishment. You're in the middle stage? Mo Chenga smiled and saluted him. I have to thank Master for your teaching. Bullshit. Lord Taoist Jinghe jumped down from the dragon chair. When did I teach you? You're provoking me. Mo Chenga thought in her heart. Master, don't you understand? Middle stage? This year. What's 200 this year? 208, Qin reminded him. Oh, 208. Lord Taoist Jinghe paced around angrily. 208 ah. I'm actually in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. Think about me, your master. Although my aptitude is outstanding and I'm smarter than most people in the celestial pole, I didn't form my nascent soul until I was 400 years old because of bad luck. I advanced to the middle stage when I was almost 600 years old. What? Why? Facing Lord Taoist Jinghe, who was in a rage, the two of them retreated several steps. Qin, she said cautiously, Master, Chenga is your disciple. Shouldn't you be very happy that she's in the middle stage? Happy. I'm very happy. Lord Taoist Jinghe waved his hand with a dark expression. I'll inform old man Jinyang to hold your nascent soul ceremony. Ha! Mo Chenga was puzzled. Master, I didn't hold it when I was forming my nascent soul. Why do I have to hold it now? Lord Taoist Jinghe said, I should have held it for you long ago, but I didn't have time. You've been in closed-door meditation for more than 10 years. Now that you've advanced to the middle stage, it's a good time to hold it again. He chuckled, his gaze fierce and his smile ferocious. Lu Dingyuan and old man Song Feng, you must be scared to death now, right? Even I, your master, am scared. After a long time, Lord Taoist Jinghe, who was in a rage, finally calmed down. He heaved a sigh of relief and sat down on the dragon throne. He said, Tell me, how did you reach the middle stage? Logically speaking, you should have needed at least several decades to accumulate your strength. Also, how's your dual cultivation going? Mo Chenga then told him everything about her closed-door meditation in the past dozen years, from her first dual cultivation technique to the Qilin bone, to the reverse control of Qilin's breath, to the absorption of Qilin's breath, to breaking through to the middle stage in one fell swoop, and then spending 5 years to stabilize her realm. As Lord Taoist Jinghe listened, his eyes widened again. 5 years? Doesn't that mean you'll be in the middle stage when you're 203 years old? Mo Chenga glanced at him then answered in a low-key manner, Yes. Lord Taoist Jinghe once again went berserk. After he was done, he smiled again, patted her shoulder and said, Good disciple, you really made master proud. Mo Chenga was a bit suspicious that her master had gone insane because of her stimulation. Chapter 627. When Lord Taoist Jinyang in Kuanzhong City received the news, he immediately replied. The nascent soul ceremony must be held, and it had to be grand and glorious. Based on the current situation, Xianqing School had already become the indisputable #1 cultivation group in the celestial pole, so it was time for them to declare their strength. As long as Mo Chenga's nascent soul ceremony was held, the celestial pole would be shaken. From then on, the celestial pole would belong to Xianqing School. Less than half a month later, Xianqing School once again sent news that Lord Taoist Huayan had advanced to the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. Lord Taoist Jinyang was overjoyed. With a wave of his writing brush, Mo Chenga's nascent soul ceremony became Qingwei's nascent soul ceremony and Huayan's middle stage celebration. Although the invitations hadn't been sent out yet, this matter quickly spread throughout the celestial pole. In the Tiandao sect's branch courtyard, Lu Dingyuan and Taoist He Feng sat opposite each other in silence. Both Tao Lord Speechless and Taoist Ji stayed in their sects and hadn't set foot in Kuanzhong City for more than 10 years. These past few years, Tiandao sect had been very diligent in training its disciples, and the results were very obvious. There were already a few disciples who had reached the peak stage of the core formation realm and had a chance to advance to the nascent soul realm. However, the birth of a nascent soul cultivator was not so simple. It was possible that it would happen decades from now. At this critical juncture, Xianqing School's Hua Yan and Lord Taoist Qingwei unexpectedly advanced to the middle stage of the nascent soul realm at the same time. They even sent invitations, preparing to hold a soul formation ceremony for Mo Qingwei. They all knew this was Xianqing School declaring its hegemony status in the celestial pole. But what could they do? Without sufficient strength, one would not have the qualifications to challenge them. They must have had other fortuitous encounters over the years. Lu Dingyuan sat on the host's seat and said slowly, Hua Yan's lifespan is approaching its end, but he still went into seclusion to break through to the middle stage. He must have obtained something to extend his lifespan. Taoist Black Wind's entire body was wrapped in black clothing, revealing only his zombie-like face. He said, Hua Yan's lifespan was originally around 200 years. If his lifespan was extended, it would be around 300 years. If he advanced to the middle stage, it would be more than 500 years. A cultivator with a lifespan of more than 500 years couldn't be said to have reached the end of his lifespan. He still had a long time to work for the sect. Unexpectedly, Lord Taoist Huayan, whom they had thought to be the least of their concerns, had turned the tables and become the focus of their attention. There's also Mo Qingwei. Lu Dingyuan frowned. No matter how I think about it, I can't figure it out. How did she advance to the middle stage? How old was she? So what if his aptitude was outstanding? Was there a shortage of talented cultivators in the celestial pole? Not only did she break the nascent soul record, but she also advanced to the middle stage of the nascent soul realm in more than 20 years. Xianqing School must have obtained an enormous fated chance. It's a pity we didn't attract any attention at that time. If he had paid more attention to it at that time, he might have been able to discover this point. If he had taken advantage of that opportunity to cause trouble or steal from the Tiandao sect, he might have had a chance to turn things around. But what about now? Lu Dingyuan felt extremely exhausted. He had already given up on fighting with Xianqing School for the time being. Now that things had come to this, he could only hide his strength and bide his time to plan for the future. Similar conversations were taking place in other cultivation groups. However, they were all glad that they chose to be closer to Xianqing School. Now that Xianqing School was on the rise, as long as they didn't stand on the wrong side, they wouldn't be affected. Not long after the news spread out, Xianqing School sent out invitations one after another. This time, not only did all the big cultivation groups receive invitations, but even small cultivation groups and individual cultivators in the core formation realm and above received invitations. Xianqing School also announced that there were many cultivation groups in the celestial pole. If any newly established cultivation group didn't receive an invitation, please forgive them. For this celebration, no matter what identity or cultivation level, everyone who came to celebrate was welcome. Lord Taoist Jinghe also sent an invitation to Master Song Feng on Mount Langtu in the far west. As for whether he would come or not, it didn't matter. It was fine as long as he saw it and felt disgusted. For a time, the celestial pole was shaken. Small cultivation groups and low-level individual cultivators cheered thunderously. Many cultivators traveled day and night to Mount Taikang, intending to participate in this grand event together. Xianqing School's market square and guest courtyards on the mountainside were all open to the public. For a time, people came and went, jostling each other's shoulders. All the shops made a lot of money. The shops near Xianqing School also made a lot of money. Because there were too many cultivators, all the guest courtyards were full. Tents were set up everywhere at the foot of Mount Taikang. These shops rented tents, so their business was very good. 3 months later, even low-level cultivators who walked slowly gathered on Mount Taikang. The soul formation ceremony, which was also the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, was finally held. 2 days before the ceremony, Xianqing School opened its main gate. Except for the school's important places, everything was open to guests. Immediately, many cultivators poured in. People came and went everywhere in Xianqing School like a market. Of course, these places didn't include the Immortals' Caves of the nascent soul cultivators. Extreme Abyss Valley was still quiet, but from time to time, People climbed to the peak to see the scenery of the nascent soul cultivators' immortals' caves. The layout of Extreme Abyss Valley and the mechanical eagles made them exclaim in admiration, and they were even more in awe of the nascent soul cultivators. On the day of the soul formation ceremony, the huge square on the main peak of Shenqing School was densely packed with cultivators. For those who couldn't stand, several nascent soul Lord Taoists worked together to cast a mysterious technique and set up floating cloud platforms in the middle of the square. This greatly broadened the horizons of many low-level cultivators. This kind of mysterious technique couldn't be cast by non-nascent soul cultivators, so they might only be able to see it once in their lives. When the time came, Luo Fengxue, wearing a crane cloak and a hibiscus crown, walked out in a dignified and calm manner and stood in front of the tens of thousands of cultivators. Fellow Taoists, today is the day of Lord Taoist Qingwei's soul formation ceremony and the celebration of Lord Taoist Huayan's advancement to the middle stage. Many of you have traveled thousands of miles to come here. I'm Bing Xen, the current sect head of Shenqing School. On behalf of all the disciples of Shenqing School, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you and welcome all of you. After she finished speaking, she bowed. Many cultivators in the square, regardless of their cultivation levels, returned her salute. Luo Fengxue stood up straight again. Her eyes were calm and without a trace of nervousness. Now I announce the start of the soul formation ceremony. Lord Taoist Jinyang, the head Grand Supreme Elder, please preside over it. At this moment, all the nascent soul Lord Taoists stood in front of the great hall of the Three Pure Ones. All of them wore tall crowns and feathered robes, looking sage-like and imposing. As soon as Luo Fengxue finished speaking, Lord Taoist Jinyang, who stood in the first place, walked out. Luo Fengxue stepped aside and he stepped forward. Fellow Taoists and disciples, I'm very honored to be standing here today. Before today, I never thought there would be a soul formation ceremony like this. My sect's disciple, Qingwei, formed her nascent soul when she was only 180 years old. Now, at the age of 208, she broke through the early stage and became a middle-stage nascent soul cultivator. I'm very excited to stand here. I hope my sect's disciples will follow Qingwei's example and persevere in pursuing the path of immortality. His impassioned speech made the blood of Shenqing School's disciples boil and made other cultivators revere Shenqing School's strength even more. Now, Qingwei, please come forward. Once Lord Taoist Jinyang finished speaking, everyone's eyes were focused on the end of the square not far away. A person stood under the gate. She wore a Taiji crown, a Taiji Taoist robe, a pair of 8 trigram shoes, and an immortal crane feather robe. She looked graceful and elegant, as beautiful as snow. Under the protection of Shenqing School's disciples on both sides, she slowly passed through the crowd and walked towards the great hall of the Three Pure Ones. There was a sudden commotion in the crowd. Many people shouted, "Look, that's Lord Taoist Qingwei." Someone looked at her and couldn't help but say, "She's really young." Someone sneered at the person in front of him. Nascent soul cultivators must be young. How can you tell from their appearance? Look at Senior Ding Wan from Biyun sect and that Lord Taoist Miaoi. Aren't they both in their 20s? The person in front of him flew into a rage out of humiliation. If you can't tell, don't tell other people can't. Oh, then may I ask how you can tell? How can I tell? Why should I tell you? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. All the noise stopped when Mo Chenga walked into the great hall of the Three Pure Ones. Lord Taoist Jinyang looked at her with a smile and led her into the hall. She knelt and kowtowed to the patriarch, saying, "My sect's disciple, Qingwei, formed her nascent soul at the age of 180 and broke through to the middle stage at the age of 208. Mo Chenga respectfully kowtowed to the patriarch's statue, kneeling 3 times and kowtowing 9 times. She didn't relax even for a moment. After kneeling, she stood up and bowed deeply to Lord Taoist Jinyang. Disciple Qingwei formed her nascent soul and advanced to the middle stage. I'll never forget the sect's great kindness. For the rest of my life, I'll do my best to care for disciples and support the sect." Lord Taoist Jinyang nodded with a smile. "I'm deeply gratified that you have such thoughts." He then led her out of the hall again and kowtowed to his master. This was already the 3rd time Lord Taoist Jinghe was kowtowed to by a disciple in the nascent soul ceremony. He was immensely proud of himself, but he didn't show it on his face. His expression was still solemn and his attitude was calm. Disciple Qingwei was able to form her nascent soul and advance to the middle stage today because of Master's 100 years of care. I hereby kowtow to thank Master for his kindness. Please reprimand me, Master." Lord Taoist Jinghe smiled and looked kindly at Mo Chenga, who was kneeling in front of him. He said, My disciple Qingwei, you're talented, smart and successful at a young age. It's rare for you to have a peaceful mind and be upright. For more than 100 years, I've seen you diligently and tirelessly, and I'm very gratified. Now that you've set foot on the great Tao, I have nothing to reprimand you. I only have one sentence for you. If you can persevere, you'll have a chance to reach the great Tao. Amo Chenga kowtowed. Thank you for your words, Master. Without Master, Qingwei wouldn't be where I am today. Qingwei will never forget Master's great kindness. Qingwei will certainly keep these words in mind and reflect on myself from time to time. I'll live up to Master's painstaking efforts. Lord Taoist Jinghe nodded with gratification and said with a pleasant expression, since you've reached the nascent soul realm, you can set up your own sect. From now on, keep the relationship between master and disciple in your heart. You don't need to call me master or kowtow to anyone. Yes, disciple will obey master's order, Mo Chinga said solemnly. Lord Taoist Jinyang stepped forward. Thank you, master. Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei, please rise. Mo Chenga stood up and returned to the line of nascent soul Lord Taoists with Lord Taoist Jinghe. Lord Taoist Jinyang faced the crowd again. Fellow Taoists, this is both Lord Taoist Qingwei's nascent soul ceremony and Lord Taoist Huayan's celebration for reaching the middle stage. Although Lord Taoist Huayan isn't famous, he's indispensable to our sect. Over the years, Lord Taoist Huayan has contributed a lot to the sect, so his cultivation level has fallen behind, but he persisted and finally advanced to the middle stage a few months ago. On the path of cultivation, a genius cultivator like Lord Taoist Qingwei certainly shines, but what's more important is someone like Lord Taoist Huayan who always perseveres and never gives up. After that, he invited Lord Taoist Huayan to kneel and kowtow to the patriarch to encourage him. In the end, Lord Taoist Jinyang announced that he was inviting everyone to a banquet, marking the end of the nascent soul ceremony. Mo Chenga breathed a sigh of relief. She was low-key by nature, so she wouldn't hold a nascent soul ceremony if she could avoid it. However, this ceremony was of great significance to Xianqing school, so she still braced herself to deal with it. Other Lord Taoists who were good at communication would handle the rest of the banquet so she could go back now. But at that moment, Luo Fengxue stopped her and said, Marshal Uncle Qingwei, you have a guest. Chapter 628. My guest. Mo Chenga felt strange. She didn't have many friends and most of them were in the sect. Who is it? Luo Fengxue answered, he's an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. His surname is Ling, surname Ling. Mo Chenga suddenly thought of a name and said, take me to him. Luo Fengxue nodded and led her to the side hall on the main peak. Before she entered the side hall, she saw a tall and straight man with his hands behind his back. He seemed to be admiring the statue of the Lord of Tao in the side hall. The moment she stepped into the side hall, the man turned around. His hair was tied in a bun, his face was handsome, and he wore an apricot-colored Taoist robe that flowed freely like flowing clouds. Fellow Taoist Mo, long time no see. Upon seeing her, the man showed a gentle, elegant, and perfect smile. It was Ling Yunhe, whom she hadn't seen in Yunzhong for many years. Fellow Taoist Ling? Mo Chenga was surprised. We haven't seen each other for many years. How are you? I'm doing okay. Ling Yunhe's gaze fell on her with a complicated expression. Oh, I haven't congratulated fellow Taoist for advancing to the middle stage. I'm very happy that I came here just in time for this grand event. It's just a small gift to show my respect. Just take it as a congratulatory gift for your soul formation ceremony. He stretched out his hand and a delicate jade box appeared in his hand, flying towards her. Mo Chenga took it and bowed. Thank you. Fellow Taoist Ling is too polite. Ling Yunhe smiled. I didn't expect fellow Taoist Mo to not only form her nascent soul but also advance to the middle stage in one fell swoop in just a little more than 50 years. I'm really ashamed of my inferiority. Mo Chenga said, didn't fellow Taoist also advance to the middle stage in one fell swoop? This time, I advanced to the middle stage by chance and took advantage of it, so it's not real. A breakthrough is a breakthrough. Isn't fated chance also a form of strength? Fellow Taoist Mo, why are you being so modest? Ling Yunhe kept a smile on his face, but it was so perfect that it seemed fake. Mo Chenga thought about how he suffered the pain of the vermilion bird's breath invading his body back then. His sect plotted for thousands of years, but she took advantage of it. It was already rare that he could still talk and laugh with her now, so she pretended not to know. Fellow Taoist Ling, why did you come to the celestial pole? Emo Chinga pointed at the chair next to her. Please sit. After the two of them sat down, Ling Yunha answered, I came to the celestial pole this time to take a look and also to pass on a message to fellow Taoist Mo. I just didn't expect that I would coincidentally run into fellow Taoist soul formation ceremony. Emo Chinga asked, May I know what kind of letter it was? Ling Yunha said, It's just a message. Someone asked me to bring a message to fellow Taoist Mo. He paused for a moment, then said, The sacrificial temple has appeared. Come quickly. All of a sudden, Emo Chinga's expression turned grave. She stared at Ling Yunha and asked, Who's the messenger? Ling Yunha said calmly, It's fellow Taoist Tianqin. Emo Chinga was confused. Fellow Taoist Tianqin, why didn't you come yourself? Are you being held up by something? Ling Yunha nodded slowly. He is entangled by Moon Shadow Demon Lord and can't leave now. If I didn't happen to pass by, he wouldn't have asked me to bring the message. This explained the whole story. Nia Wuxiang, who went by the pseudonym Tianqin, only had a mediocre friendship with Ling Yunha. Asking him to bring a message was a bit strange in itself, let alone a message. Emo Chinga nodded. Thank you, fellow Taoist Ling. May I know when you'll return to Yunzhong? I'll return soon, Ling Yunha said. I'm just taking a look around. Earlier he said he came to the celestial pole to take a look and conveniently deliver a message, but now he said he was just taking a look around. Upon hearing that, Emo Chinga immediately knew he came to deliver a message to her. However, she had a grudge against Jiyan sect, so she couldn't say it out loud. Emo Chinga solemnly cupped her hands and saluted Ling Yunha. Thank you, fellow Taoist Ling. If fellow Taoist doesn't mind, could you wait for a few days and let me accompany you? Ling Yunha's gaze froze for a moment. He then looked at her playfully. Fellow Taoist Mo, we had that kind of conflict before, but you're still willing to believe me? Aren't you afraid I'll attack you on the way? Emo Chinga chuckled. Not to mention that I've always been conceited, the Ling Yunha I know definitely isn't the kind of person who acts behind the scenes. She always remembered the Ling Yunha who trusted his brothers and friends wholeheartedly in Carefree Valley. Ling Yunha lowered his head in silence. A crack appeared on the perfect smile on his face. In the end he sighed and said, I hope I'll always be this Ling Yunha. In the next moment he raised his head and put on the perfect mask again. Fellow Taoist Mo, where can I rest? Emo Chinga said happily, Thank you, fellow Taoist Ling, for being willing to wait for me. Ling Yunha waved his hand. I was also invited by fellow Taoist Tianqin, so it's just convenient. Even so, thank you. Emo Chinga turned around and called the steward waiting outside, asking him to make arrangements for her. The steward said, The sect head has already given the order. Honored guest, please follow me. Ling Yunha stood up and cupped his hands towards Emo Chinga. Without saying anything else, he followed the steward and left. Emo Chinga stood in the same place for a while, then went out, wanting to return to Clear Spring Peak. Unexpectedly, when she arrived at the Three Pure Palace, she saw Qin Shi waiting there. She quickly went to greet him. Why didn't you go back? Qin Shi smiled. Instead of answering, he asked, The person who came was Ling Yunha? Emo Chinga nodded. I was about to discuss this matter with you. Let's go back first. Qin Shi didn't say anything. The two of them left the main peak together and returned to their Immortal's Cave on Clear Spring Peak. As they flew, Ling Yunha, who was following behind the steward, raised his head and looked at the two figures in the clouds. He then heaved a long sigh. When they returned to Submerged Abyss Valley, none of the disciples were there. Even Xiaoguzi and Xiaozue went to the main peak to help. Only Xiaofeng stayed behind to guard the entrance. The two of them simply didn't enter the Immortal's Cave. Instead, they randomly chose a rock floating on the water and sat down, leaning against the mountain and watching the water. Ling Yunha came to deliver a message. Emo Chinga told him about her meeting with Ling Yunha. In the end, she said, If it's really about the sacrificial temple, I have to go there. Qin Shi pondered for a while, then asked, Is Ling Yunha trustworthy? It should be, Emo Chinga commented. Although he's also good at scheming, he always plays overt schemes instead of conspiracies. I think his character is more trustworthy than most people. But we made a big enemy with Jiyan sect in Yunzhong. Emo Chinga smiled and shook her head. Ling Yunha disdains using this kind of method to take revenge. I believe that. All right. Qin Shi didn't dwell on this matter anymore. He said, I believe you. Emo Chinga turned to look at him and smiled gently. Then what did Nia Wuxiang mean? Qin Shi frowned slightly. The sacrificial temple has appeared. Come quickly. Which sacrificial temple is it and how did it appear? Ling Yunhe sent a message saying she was entangled by Devil Monarch Moon Shadow. Is that because of this? I can confirm the location of several sacrificial temples. The first was the Azure Dragon, which had been destroyed in the East Sea. The second was the Vermilion Bird, which was in a secret place in the Sea of Returning Ruins. It was impossible to enter now, and even if it did, it would be useless. The Vermilion Bird Bow and the Prime Fiend Steel were no longer there. The White Tiger was in the westernmost Fengsha city, where the nascent soul cultivators of the Immortal Allies were stationed. The rest are the Black Tortoise and the Kirin. The Black Tortoise is in the Jialing Mountain in the clouds, but I have never been there. The Kirin doesn't know. Qin Shi lightly tapped his knuckles. The first three are already worthless. Nye Wuxiang's in Yunzhong, so the one that appeared in the world is most likely Black Tortoise Sacrificial Temple. In addition, the Qilin is also possible, if it is also in the clouds. Mo Qinga continued on, Ling Yunhe isn't in a hurry at all, so for now there hasn't been anyone fighting for it. What about Demon Lord Yuing? What's going on? Mo Qinga thought for a while then said, I'll ask Ling Yunhe tomorrow. Qin Shi neither objected nor agreed to it. The two of them chatted for a while more before going back to cultivate. The next day, some people had already returned home, so Xianqing School suddenly became a lot more empty. Mo Qinga and Qin Shi went to see Lord Daoist Jinghe and reported this matter. Lord Daoist Jinghe was very cautious, so he simply ran to the Three Pure Hall on the main peak and called all the nascent soul Lord Daoists there. After listening to this matter, Xinjiang, Huayan, and the others had the same opinion. They thought they should go, but they had different opinions on whether they should go with Ling Yunhe and whether they could be trusted. After discussing for a long time, they finally reluctantly reached an agreement. Shoujing Qingwei, this is your fated chance so you can make the decision, Lord Daoist Jinyang said. But there's one thing you must pay attention to. If Jiyan sect has other people accompanying them, you must stall for time. We'll also send someone to go. Lord Daoist Jinyang originally planned to take another person with them, but unfortunately they couldn't find anyone to go. Jinyang, Miaoyi, and Xianin had to represent Xianqing School in Kuanzhong City. Now that most of Tiandao sect's forces had withdrawn from the Immortal Alliance, the responsibility fell on Xianqing School, so 3 people were already the least. Jinghe and Huayan guarded the mountain gate. Jinghe was still training disciples, and Huayan was helping Jinghe and stabilizing his realm. Lingxi could have gone with them, but unfortunately he was cultivating a secret technique at a critical moment. If he stopped abruptly, it would be very harmful to him. Therefore Lord Daoist Jinyang sighed. No matter how many nascent soul cultivators there were, they wouldn't be enough. Qin Shi nodded. We know. Lord Daoist Huayan hesitated for a while and asked, I'm still worried about you too. Qingwei, is your friend really reliable? He had asked this question several times. Mo Qinga said helplessly, he's really reliable. Don't worry, senior martial brother Huayan. Qin Shi thought about it and said, maybe we can find a helper. Everyone's gaze fell on him. Mo Qinga asked, who? Jing Xingji. Qin Shi's answer was within her expectations. Mo Qinga really wanted to roll her eyes, but there were too many people, so she held back. You really trust him? Qin Shi said, I told you I've known him since I built my foundation. Although he's not a good person, he's one of the few people I can trust. Jing Xingji? Lord Daoist Jinyang was confused. Lord Daoist Jinghe said, he used to be Zhongguang's precious disciple. Venerable swordsman Zhongguang was from the same generation as them, so Lord Daoist Jinyang also knew him. Later on, he also heard that after Venerable swordsman Zhongguang died, he left behind a disciple who was quite marginalized in the sect. However, Venerable swordsman Zhongguang's friendship with them was very ordinary, so there was no need for him to intervene in other people's sect affairs for his disciple, so he didn't know Jing Xingji's name. So it's him. I seem to have heard that this boy betrayed the sect. Lord Daoist Jinghe rolled his eyes. He wasn't afraid of being embarrassed. After that boy betrayed the sect, he advanced to the nascent soul realm. Old man Yuanying later looked for him. In my opinion, he'll return to Gujian sect sooner or later. Lord Daoist Jinyang thought about it and said, since you trust him, it's up to you. Chapter 629. Ling Yunhe expressed that he did not know anything about the Moon Shadow Demon Lord. Coincidentally, he met the Moon Shadow Demon Lord who was chasing after Tian Can. Tian Can had no choice but to ask him to deliver a message and promised to invite him along. Mo Chenga was worried. Devil Monarch Yuing is one of the 3 great devil cultivators in the late nascent realm in Yunzhong. If Nie Wuxiang is being chased by him, what if? Qin Shi said, look at Ling Yunhe. He's not anxious at all, so he knows Nie Wuxiang isn't in danger for the time being. No matter what, she's Master Songfeng's disciple. She was only in the core formation realm, yet she was able to cross the South Sea by force, so it's obvious that she has some treasures in her hands. It probably won't be a problem for her to escape. Mo Chenga felt what he said was reasonable. She was confused because she was too concerned. Since he decided to ask Jing Xingji to go with him, Qin Shi didn't delay. On the same day he personally went to the Wind Breath Valley on Mount Jiuling in Jin country. Mo Chenga stayed behind to entertain Ling Yunhe. Now that Xianqing School had built a large number of transporting formations, it was much more convenient to travel. Qin Shi first teleported to the border between Kunwu and the secular world, then flew. In just half a day he arrived at Fengshi Valley. After she entered Wind Breath Valley, she met Shang Ruan and inquired about Jing Xingji. Shang Ruan said Jing Xingji had been in closed-door meditation in the Sword Cave for 15 years. He came out of closed-door meditation a few years ago and left. She didn't say where he went, but judging from what he said, he probably went to Yunzhong. Qin Shi thanked her, then rushed back to Xianqing School. When Mo Chenga heard about this, she said, that being the case, we have no other choice. Maybe we'll be able to find him if we go to Yunzhong. Qin Shi thought about it. He couldn't say nothing just because Jing Xingji didn't want to go. The next day they took the spirit beasts with them, handed the cave to the disciples, and left with the cloud-soaring crane. They first followed the cloud-soaring crane to the nameless town next to Kuanzhong City, and then used the long-distance transporting formation to Yunzhong. After that, they borrowed the transporting formation of Juyin sect and arrived at Sky Snow City on the same day. Mo Chenga had to admit that the level of cultivation in Yunzhong was indeed higher than in the Celestial Pole. Not to mention the fact that the average cultivation level of the cultivators here was higher, their daily lives were also more convenient. There were transporting formations in many places that they could use. After returning to Sky Snow City, Ling Yunhe summoned Ling Yishuan and asked him about Nie Wuxiang. Ling Yishuan reported that according to the latest news, they seemed to have been lingering in the North Sea and had not returned to Yunzhong. The original North Sea in Yunzhong was the South Sea in the Celestial Pole before the world changed. However, after the world changed, Yunzhong moved northward, and the original North Sea, which was the South Sea in the Celestial Pole, was now located south of Yunzhong and east of the Celestial Pole. Now in Yunzhong, North Sea referred to the true northernmost sea. The northernmost sea was extremely barren. Apart from some vicious beasts, there were no signs of human habitation. Because of the harsh conditions, the sea beasts were few in number and powerful. Ling Yunhe said that the Sea of Endless Ruin couldn't even be compared to it. Even nascent soul cultivators didn't want to go there. Once Mo Chenga heard what he said, she became very cautious and carefully inquired about the situation in the northernmost sea. Fortunately, Ling Yunhe was prepared and explained everything to them in detail. In the North Sea, the most dangerous thing was the aurora that covered the entire sea all year round. The magnetic force it contained disrupted the 5 elements, and it was difficult to determine yin and yang. Nascent soul cultivators' cultivation would be greatly reduced if they were in it. The area where the aurora shone was known as the Arctic Circle. Next was the shattering wind, which contained a strange power. Every time it blew past, space would become unstable, and there was almost no way to resist it. The only way was to avoid it. Mo Chenga thought it was probably because of these 2 reasons that Devil Lord Moonshadow couldn't do anything to Nie Wuxiang. Ling Yunhe finally revealed his situation when they arrived at Sky Snow City. He formed his nascent soul 20 years after he came back from the Sea of Endless Ruin. Although he didn't get the vermilion bird bow back then, it could be considered a blessing in disguise. His meridians were connected by the vermilion bird's breath, which broadened his meridians and tempered them to be incomparably strong, so he didn't face any obstacles when he formed his nascent soul. After he formed his nascent soul, he stepped down from his position as the head of Juyin sect and became the Grand Supreme Elder. Ling Yunhe formed his nascent soul before her. When they were in the Sea of Endless Ruin, he was still in the late stage of the core formation realm. In just 20 years, he crossed the peak stage of the core formation realm and entered the nascent soul realm. It was clear how much benefit the vermilion bird's breath brought him. Thinking up to this point, Mo Chenga felt a little relieved. At least they didn't harm Ling Yunhe too badly. Thinking about this, Mo Chenga said jokingly, "Fellow Taoist Ling, now that the 2 of us are under Juyin sect's nose, your sect won't take this opportunity to retaliate, right?" Ling Yunhe smiled faintly. All these years, Martial Uncle Yuan Mu hasn't recovered from his injuries, and Martial Uncle Iron Face is about to pass away. Jian sect isn't in the mood to make trouble for you too. Really? Mo Chenga stopped smiling. She also had a part in Jian sect's current situation, so she'd better not say anything. After a moment of silence, both sides had nothing to say, so Ling Yunhe said, "You two should rest first. We'll set off after we get some definite information." They naturally didn't have any objections, and it wasn't convenient for them to have any. They rested in Sky Snow City for a day. The next day, Ling Yunhe set off after getting the latest news about Nie Wuxiang. They still used a long-distance transporting formation along the way, directly transferring from Sky Snow City to North Pole Island. The current North Pole Island lived up to its name. Among the confirmed continents, it was the northernmost one. In just over 20 years, North Pole Island, which used to be bustling with people coming and going, was now desolate. All the shops had been moved and the residents were nowhere to be seen. The streets were empty, and in the bleak cold wind of the North Sea, the shop signs that hadn't been blown away were tottering, looking extremely desolate. Upon seeing this, Ling Yunhe sighed. In the past, who could have foreseen that North Pole Island would actually have such a desolate day? Human and material resources are no match for the power of heaven and earth. They'd also seen the former North Pole Island, but compared to the one in front of them, it was practically two different worlds. In the cold wind, a hunchbacked figure slowly walked over. When he arrived in front of him, he revealed an old face. "Master Immortals." The old man respectfully bowed to the three of them. "There's no one left on North Pole Island. If you came to trade, you'd better go back quickly." The old man was just a mortal, so he couldn't see their cultivation levels, so he made such a guess. In the first few years after the world changed, cultivators who had just come out of closed-door meditation often came to North Pole Island to hunt beasts and trade without knowing the inside story. Unfortunately, their trip was in vain. "Old man, thank you for reminding us, but we didn't come to trade," Ling Yunhe replied with a pleasant expression. Grandpa. Before the old man could say anything, a call came from not far away. A sturdy teenager came looking for them. "Grandpa." This teenager was an aura-refining cultivator with spiritual roots. When he saw the old man, he ran over happily. In the next moment, when he saw the three of them, his smile disappeared and he greeted them with a bit of fear. Junior greets seniors. His cultivation level was too low, so he also couldn't see their actual realms, but their powerful auras couldn't be faked. He guessed that since they were a bit stronger than foundation-building cultivators, they should be in the core formation realm, right? No need to be so polite. Ling Yunhe raised his hand and gestured for the teenager to leave. He asked, "There's no one left on North Pole Island. Why haven't you left?" The teenager said, "It's my grandpa who refuses to leave. He said he lived on North Pole Island all his life and didn't want to leave his hometown." Ling Yunhe frowned slightly. "But this place is no longer suitable for people to live in." Although North Pole Island wasn't in the Arctic Circle, it was very close. From time to time, auroras would leak out and the tail of the wind would also sweep here. The old man's face was full of vicissitudes. He sighed and said, "I don't have many years to live. Just let me die here. This grandson of mine is filial. I told him to leave a few years ago, but he refused." Ling Yunhe looked at the teenager and said, "Do you know that if you live here for a long time, your body will be damaged and your future achievements will be affected?" Once the old man heard that, he hurriedly pulled his grandson. "Good grandson, is this true?" The teenager was silent for a long time before he nodded. "I know, but I can't leave my grandpa behind." "Good grandson, it's hard to leave one's homeland." Ling Yunhe sighed. He took out a jade bottle from his robe and handed it to the teenager. "This bottle of medicinal pills is used for body tempering, so it won't be a big problem to resist the auroras and hurricanes. Your grandpa is old and weak, so he can only eat one pill at most. You can use the rest to temper your body." The teenager was surprised and happy. "Senior, take it." The teenager took it, then knelt down and kowtowed without saying anything. "Thank you, senior." The old man beside him also bowed repeatedly. "Thank you, Master Immortal." "Thank you, Master Immortal. You're really kind." "It's nothing. No need to thank me," Ling Yunhe said faintly. He then turned to Mo Chenga and Qin Shi and said, "Let's go." After he said that, he took the lead and flew far away. Mo Chenga and Qin Shi looked at each other, then followed him. They could see that Ling Yunhe's behavior was very strange this time. Although the original Ling Yunhe valued friendship, he would never show it on his face. let alone be so sentimental. Mo Chinga couldn't figure it out, and Qin Shi knew even less about Ling Yunhe. After thinking for a long time, she directly asked, "Fellow Taoist Ling." Ling Yunhe didn't stop and only answered faintly, "N?" She said, "Did something happen to you?" Ling Yunhe didn't answer for a long time. He was flying in the front, so she couldn't see his expression. After a long time, she heard his soft voice. "If everything is destroyed, what's the point of fighting?" "Everything is destroyed." Since Qin Shi suddenly stopped moving, Mo Chinga also stopped. Ling Yunhe flew for a while but didn't see them following him, so he had to turn back. "What's wrong with you two?" Qin Shi stared at him. "What do you mean by, everything is destroyed?" Ling Yunhe smiled and said carelessly, "I just said it casually. I'm afraid not." Chapter 630. When he said the word her, Ling Yunhe paused and stared at Qin Shi with a faint smile on his lips as if he was waiting for Qin Shi's counterattack. To his disappointment, Qin Shi didn't react and just stared at him. After a long time, Ling Yunhe sighed. "Are you too confident or don't you care?" Seeing that Qin Shi still didn't answer, he said seriously, "Don't pretend you don't understand." He was determined to hear an answer. Qin Shi finally opened his mouth, but he just shook his head. "This is between us, so I don't know where to start." He didn't have the habit of telling other people about his love affairs, and he didn't need to. Ling Yunhe was stunned. After a long time, he smiled bitterly. "Forget it. Why should I look for trouble?" His eyes regained their clarity and he said, "I'll tell you about this, but now isn't the time." "When is that?" Qin Shi didn't want to be brushed off. "When I calm down." Ling Yunhe said something that wasn't calm at all and was about to turn around. However, he heard Mo Chinga's voice from behind him. "Do you also know the reason why the distant past and Middle Ages world were destroyed?" Ling Yunhe suddenly stopped and turned around. Mo Chinga stared at him without blinking. Their conversation just now was out of the blue, so she didn't really understand. However, she somewhat understood what Ling Yunhe said just now. Everything would be destroyed. Aside from the thing they knew, what else could be called, everything would be destroyed? Ling Yunhe must know something. After a long time, Ling Yunhe asked, "How do you know?" "Sure enough, you know." Mo Chinga didn't answer but just stared at him. Ling Yunhe sighed again. He had been sighing a lot lately. He said, "Let's go find fellow Taoist Tianqin first. The longer we wait, the harder it will be to find him." Mo Chinga only thought for a few seconds before she agreed. All right. Compared to this matter, she cared more about Nie Wuxiang's safety. As if nothing had happened, the three of them flew towards the depths of the North Sea again. The further north they flew, the stronger the sea breeze became. In the end, it faintly carried the power to tear everything apart. When it blew past, the surrounding space became extremely unstable. Ling Yunhe reminded, "This is the splitting wind. We will soon enter the Arctic Circle. Under the aurora, the splitting wind will be even stronger. If we encounter the eye of the storm, there's no other way but to hide." The sky grew darker and darker, but the northern sky gradually lit up with a layer of fluorescent light. This fluorescent light was colorful like fog and lightning. It was extremely gorgeous, as if an immortal had held a brush and waved it freely, leaving behind a thick and colorful brush stroke. However, this extremely beautiful scenery was accompanied by a threatening killing intent. Right after the three of them entered the range of the aurora, Missouri Tianga's and Qin Shi's protective spiritual light suddenly emitted smoke. Ling Yunhe stopped and said, "The aurora has magnetic forces. It's best if the two of you have some special means of protection." Mo Chinga and Qin Shi glanced at each other. Between the two of them, Qin Shi specialized in fire, but it seemed he wasn't very useful at the moment. As for Mo Chinga, she learned a lot of things, but unfortunately her strongest defensive magic weapon, the white silk handkerchief, had been destroyed. The two of them pondered for a while. Mo Chinga summoned the 8 trigrams of Tai Chi while Qin Shi took out a silk-like immortal robe. He waved his hand and spread it out, forming a silk cloth to protect the two of them. This immortal robe was one of the rewards from the Immortal Alliance. It came from the warehouse in Fengsha City. They had completely solved the problem of the demonic cultivators in the East Sea and made a great contribution. The Immortal Allies specially rewarded them with a lot of wealth. They were not short of spirit stones or elixirs, so they picked a few magic treasures that were more useful and left the rest in the cave abode to fill up their collection room. Ling Yunhe's gaze stopped on the immortal robe for a moment and then moved away. It was a good magic weapon, but it had no value to him. The farther north the three of them flew, the stronger the magnetic forces of the aurora became. Moreover, they couldn't hide at all. The splitting wind blew frequently, and its power was even greater than the aurora. This flight lasted for 3 days. Ling Yunhe's spies didn't dare to enter the North Sea. They just watched from the edge of the North Sea. These days they didn't find any trace of Moon Shadow Devil Master or Nie Wuxiang, so they deduced that they should still be in the North Sea. As for where they were, they could only find it themselves. Fortunately, Nie Wuxiang left a primordial spirit tablet to Ling Yunhe, so he could roughly sense the distance between them. They could be sure that Nie Wuxiang was still safe. A sharp sound rang in their ears. The turbulence in the space caused by the splitting wind instantly intensified. Ling Yunhe's expression changed. Not good. The eye of the wind is coming. The three of them looked up. Not far away, huge gray vortexes sucked the sea surface. Wherever they passed, the sea surged, the ice floes shattered, and huge waves were set off without exception. We have to hide for a while, Ling Yunhe said hurriedly. The power of the eye of the wind is definitely not something we can resist. Even late nascent soul cultivators can't resist it. Emo Chenga looked around and frowned. There's seawater and ice flows here. Where can we hide? The bottom of the sea? Ling Yunhe nodded. Yes, the bottom of the sea. He paused for a moment, then added, most of the demonic beasts in North Sea hide at the bottom of the sea. We must be careful when we enter the sea. The eye of the wind was moving. Before long it would reach their position. After Ling Yunhe finished speaking, he dove into the sea without hesitation. Qin didn't waste any time. He spread his immortal robe and threw it to Emo Chenga. He then shook his arm to summon the sword formation and also dove into the sea. Emo Chenga didn't say anything. She could only put on the immortal robe and follow him. Under the influence of the splitting wind, the seawater was also turbulent. Fortunately, they were all nascent soul cultivators, so this little turbulence was nothing to them. By the time the eye of the wind reached the sea above their heads, they had already dove deep into the sea and couldn't be affected. In the past few days, there hadn't been any trace of living creatures on the sea surface. It wasn't until now that they saw a vague shadow swimming in the sea. Emo Chenga watched the shadow glide by and didn't disappear for a long time. She was a bit frightened. Such a big sea beast, but its breath was so weak. She didn't think that the lack of breath was weak. Ling Yunhe said the sea beasts that could survive in North Sea were all in the nascent soul realm. Ling Yunhe was prepared. As soon as they reached the bottom of the sea, he took out a palm-sized boat-shaped magic weapon. As soon as he took out this magic weapon, it quickly became a real ship that could accommodate dozens of people. Let's go in, he said, and opened the cabin door first. When they entered, the cabin door closed and the whole ship became a closed space. The eye of the wind might take a few days to disperse. We'll wait here, Ling Yunhe said, then found a place to sit at the bow of the ship and meditated with his back facing them. Judging from his appearance, he didn't plan to talk to them. Emo Chenga had always been a tactful person. She pulled Qin to sit in the back cabin and faced Ling Yunhe from a distance. How are you? She asked with concern. I'm fine. Qin knew what she was asking about. Just now, he left the immortal robe to her and only used the sword formation to protect himself. The sword formation's power was greatly reduced under the aurora light and the splitting wind. I just consumed a lot of spiritual aura, but I can still hold on. After a while, Qin said, in this kind of environment, our strength will decline. Needless to say, except for my natal magic weapon, the vermilion bird bow is fire element. As for you, your heaven and earth fan has all 5 elements, and your Fuxing sword and great heavenly thunder technique are thunder element. That devil monarch Moon Shadow is not only in the late nascent soul realm, but he also has refined corpses with him. If a devil cultivator is less affected. They were all in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm now. With the divine beast's breath on them, they still had a chance to win against the late nascent soul cultivator, but if they were weakened too much, it shouldn't be. Emo Chenga recalled her experience in Carefree Valley. Devil aura is opposite to spiritual aura, but it's still within the 5 elements and within yin and yang. Filthy aura and dead aura are all unique existences that can affect devil aura. Presumably, aurora and splattering wind are the same. They shouldn't be an exception. In the end, aurora was the power of primordial magnetism, while splattering wind was the power of tearing space. These two kinds of power, regardless of whether they were spiritual aura or devil aura, were different. Qin thought about it and felt it was reasonable. I hope so. The two of them were silent for a while, then he suddenly said, do you know what Ling Yunhe said that day? I do. Qin Shi smiled. I thought you wouldn't understand. I didn't understand at first, but after I thought about it, I understood, Mo Chinga answered honestly. She waited for a long time, but Qin Shi didn't ask anything else. She couldn't help but ask again, You don't want to ask why? Qin Shi looked down at her with a smile on his lips. Do I want to ask why? I never thought you weren't attractive. His reaction was too calm, as if a sea of jealousy had never appeared on him. Even at this moment he still spoke in such a flat tone. Mo Chinga said, No wonder he asked that day if you were too confident or if you didn't care. Qin Shi said, What he thinks is his business. The matters between us have nothing to do with others. Now, if I don't even have this little bit of confidence, how can I be with him for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years? Feelings are never something that can blossom and bear fruit in a moment of impulse. Suspicion and doubt will only wear away its existence. If it's worn away one day, that'll be the evil we brought upon ourselves. Seeing that Mo Chinga was staring at him, he smiled. What's wrong? She sighed and said, I know now. In fact, I'm the one who lost. Qin Shi raised his eyebrows, expressing his confusion. Mo Chinga smiled but didn't answer. The splattering wind blew for 2 whole days. 2 days later, Ling Yunhe stood up. Mo Chinga and Qin Shi also stood up. Ling Yunhe said, The eye of the wind should be gone now. Let's go up. They were about to answer when the hull of the ship suddenly shook. Ling Yunhe was startled and turned to look outside. A huge eye swept over the ship, followed by a hollow mouth with sharp teeth. This is a demonic beast from the North Sea? Mo Chinga was shocked. She had never seen such a huge sea beast in her life. It didn't have any aura on its body, but it was even more terrifying because of that. Ling Yunhe's expression was extremely unsightly. What bad luck. Chapter 631. Fellow Taoist Ling? Mo Chinga and Qin Shi didn't act immediately. After all, they were inside Ling Yunhe's magic weapon. Ling Yunhe looked at the sea beast outside with a gloomy expression. Although the 3 of us can kill this beast if we work together, it'll be a waste of time. It'll be troublesome if we get hurt. He walked forward with a determined expression. I'll try to get rid of it. Get rid of it? Before they could say anything, Ling Yunhe had already made hand seals and cast spells on the ship. In an instant, countless talismans lit up around the ship along with the spells. During this short period of time, the sea beast blinked its eyes, opened its mouth wide, and sucked hard as if it wanted to suck the ship in. The moment the ship started to tilt, all the talismans lit up. Spiritual aura was transmitted from the spirit gathering formation on the bow of the ship. With a buzzing sound, the bow of the ship that had been sucked in suddenly broke free, turned around and shot into the darkness like an arrow. The 3 people on the ship were prepared for this. They didn't move at all. Ling Yunhe looked even more serious as he kept making hand seals. Mo Chinga turned her head to look. Outside the barrier, the sea beast seemed to be stunned for a moment. It blinked its eyes, then suddenly dashed towards them. It's chasing us. Ling Yunhe didn't look back. This was his magic weapon, so he could sense the surging aura chasing them. He said, Exchange the spirit gathering formation for spirit stones. The more the better. He was controlling the magic weapon and couldn't free his hands. The spirit stones on the ship hadn't been changed for several days and were about to be used up. Mo Chinga stepped forward and glanced at the spirit gathering formation providing spiritual aura on the ship. Fellow Taoist Ling, if you trust me, I'll lay another spirit gathering formation. Nonsense. Ling Yunhe interrupted her. If I don't trust you, who should I trust? Hurry up. Mo Chinga didn't say anything more. She poured out a pile of colorful, sparkling and translucent jades from her Qingquan ring, each of which emitted extremely pure spiritual aura. Ling Yunhe's eyes widened. You actually have so many crystal jades. These crystal jades were obtained from the immortal palace in the returning ruined sea. Jian sect also obtained many ancient cultivator relics, so Ling Yunhe also had crystal jades. However, he was only a junior and didn't have many, so he only got about 10 of them. Mo Chinga, on the other hand, poured out dozens of them. Mo Chinga didn't pay any attention to him. With a flick of her sleeve, several crystal jades were placed in the original main positions of the formation. Then, her nimble hands quickly dismantled the spirit gathering array. As she dismantled it, she rearranged it. In just a moment, a brand new spirit gathering array was set up. During the whole process, the spiritual aura provided to Ling Yunhe was never cut off. When the dozens of crystal jades in the eye of the formation shone together, Ling Yunhe felt the pressure was lifted, and he easily steered the ship forward, breaking the waves. It should be enough to maintain full speed for several days, right? Mo Chenga retreated. Ling Yunhe said, with so many crystal jades, is there even a need to ask? In a battle of magical powers between nascent soul cultivators, a single crystal jade could sometimes affect the outcome of the battle, let alone so many crystal jades. If those people knew that they were only using them in the spirit gathering formation to control their magic treasures, they would probably faint from anger. Thinking of this, Ling Yunhe gritted his teeth. He didn't have many crystal jades with him. Using them like this, she was really a spendthrift. He really didn't know how Qin Shoujing endured it. Mo Chenga knew what he was thinking, but she didn't feel it was a pity at all. In any case, the crystal jades would automatically recover, so what was the point of keeping them? Spending some time came back. With the support of the abundant spiritual aura from the crystal jades, Ling Yunhe steered the magic treasure ship forward at full speed. At first, the sea beast behind them followed slowly, but later, as if it was provoked, it chased after them fiercely. This sea beast originally lived in the North Sea, so it was extremely fast. Moreover, it wasn't afraid of aurora or splitting wind, so it didn't have any misgivings when chasing them. Even if Ling Yunhe steered the magic treasure ship to the extreme, he could only guarantee that they wouldn't catch up. In the blink of an eye, more than an hour had passed. The sea beast was still chasing them, and the magic treasure ship maintained its fastest speed, not daring to relax for even a moment. Will it keep chasing us? Mo Chenga couldn't help but ask. This was also the first time Ling Yunhe faced a sea beast in the North Sea, so he didn't expect it to be so fast. With a serious expression he said, I don't know. Demonic beasts were much more patient than humans when they encountered their prey. If this sea beast regarded them as prey, it might chase them to the ends of the earth. But if they didn't run, they could only kill it. Normally, beast cultivators wouldn't surpass the 10th rank. They had 3 nascent soul cultivators here, 1 in the early stage and 2 in the middle stage. Killing a sea beast was nothing difficult. However, Ling Yunhe also said the sea beasts here were very hard to kill, so it would definitely take them some time. If they got injured, it would be better to run if they could. How long will it take to chase us like this? Don't we want to save time? Qin, she said with a frown after more than an hour had passed. We won't waste time, Ling Yunhe said casually. Our current direction is the direction where fellow Taoist Tian Can is. What? Mo Chenga said anxiously, what if we don't get rid of it halfway? Do we take this sea beast to save people? We'll talk about it when the time comes. Ling Yunhe was a bit annoyed while operating the magic treasure. If worst comes to worst, we can just abandon this thing and leave on our own. Mo Chenga didn't say anything. Anyone with eyes could see the value of this magic treasure ship. Although it couldn't compare to a flying boat, it was much more exquisite. It was worth all the wealth of an ordinary nascent soul cultivator. Ling Yunhe didn't take this thing out at the beginning, so he probably cherished it very much. Now he said these words most likely out of anger. After a while, Ling Yunhe calmed down and said, if we can't get rid of it in 3 days, we'll get off the ship and kill it. This ship consumes a lot of energy, so it's not worth staying here for too long. Mo Chenga and Ling Yunhe naturally didn't have any objections. Okay, we'll listen to fellow Taoist. Ling Yunhe was afraid of alarming other sea beasts at the bottom of the sea, so he simply floated to the surface and broke the waves. On the surface of the sea, the aurora was unobstructed. The magic treasure ship let out a soft cry and its shield lit up. It continued to ride the wind and waves without any pause. Mo Chenga looked down. In the spirit gathering formation, the crystal jades gathered spiritual aura even faster. She knew Ling Yunhe was right. Sailing on the surface of the sea like this consumed spiritual aura very quickly because they had to resist the aurora and the wind. Although they could afford the consumption of crystal jades, as Ling Yunhe said, it wasn't worth it. Once the crystal jades were consumed, it would take time to recover. If they ignored the sea beasts behind them, flying at high speed under the aurora was indeed a beautiful scene rarely seen in the world. The aurora in the sky was like mist and lightning, clear and misty. There was no sun or moon around them, but the brightest stars in the world were like golden sand in the darkness. It would be even better if they could feel the sea breeze at this time. Unfortunately, the sea breeze here was the wind of the wind. If it blew directly on their bodies, it would be fatal. Mo Chenga watched for a while. When she turned around, she saw Qin Shi cultivating again. She shook her head, calmed her mind, and sat in meditation to adjust her breath. After a long time, they suddenly heard Ling Yunhe's voice. Mo Chinga and Qin Shi woke up at the same time and turned to look at him. Ling Yunhe didn't turn around, but he said to them, "Fellow Taoist Tiancan is coming towards us." As soon as he said that, the two of them said at the same time, "What?" The primordial spirit tablet sensed it. The primordial spirit tablet. Then it shouldn't be wrong. Mo Chinga thought about it and felt uneasy. We're dragging a sea beast now. If Demon Lord Moon Shadow is following fellow Taoist Tianca. She didn't need to continue. They all knew how bad the situation was. Whether it was the sea beast or Demon Lord Moon Shadow, they weren't afraid if they worked together, but if they met, abandon the ship. Kill the beast. The next moment, Qin Shi stood up and summoned the three young real fire sword. Killing the sea beast before they met up with Nye Wuxiang was the best way to deal with it. If Demon Lord Moon Shadow wasn't following them, everything would be fine. If he was behind them, they would have time to fight him. Ling Yunhe naturally understood. He cast a spell and the cabin door opened silently. Let's go. Qin Shi took the lead to leave the magic boat after glancing at Mo Chinga. Mo Chinga summoned the jade bone puppet, gave it the Fuxing sword and jumped out. As soon as she got out of the boat, the three young real fire sword flashed, and the vermilion bird's flames spread out. Qin Shi attacked directly. Mo Chinga didn't hesitate. She waved the heaven and earth fan, and a ball of golden lightning flew out from it, turning into countless golden rays that sprinkled down like a golden rain. At the same time, the puppet wielded the Fuxing sword and slashed at the sea beast. They all hit it. The sea beast's body stiffened, but it wasn't injured at all. This beast has been attacked by aurora and hurricanes all year round, so its skin is extremely tough. Ling Yunhe came out of the boat, turned the boat back to the size of a magic weapon, and put it back into his Chengkuan bag. After that, a light flashed and a stream of light appeared in his hand. It was like a crescent moon, cold and gloomy, tangible but intangible. After advancing to the nascent soul realm, his natal magic weapon was refined again, and its appearance was very different from before. It was originally just a crescent moon-shaped jade knife, but now it turned into a cold light as if it was really moonlight. Seeing the sea beast, Ling Yunhe's eyes narrowed. Your magic weapon can actually hurt it? Hoo. This sea beast looked terrifying, but it couldn't roar. It could only make a hoo sound that sounded like it was spitting bubbles. It seemed to have just reacted. It opened its mouth, spat out a string of bubbles and tried to bite them. The three of them fled in different directions and attacked separately. The vermilion bird's flame blotted out the sky and covered the earth. The golden lightning rain took advantage of every gap, and the moonlight essence was as fast as lightning. This sea beast didn't seem to know how to dodge, so it took all of them head-on. For a moment, the sea was turbulent and huge waves were set off. Hoo, the sea beast was furious. It bared its sharp teeth and twisted crazily. Chi. As it twisted, the sea beast's pitch-black skin emitted a layer of luster. This luster was like fog and lightning with a gorgeous brilliance, and it triggered a strange aura. Under this aura, the three people's spiritual aura became chaotic. This sea beast lived in the North Sea all year round. It was attacked by aurora and hurricanes, so it had a body of copper skin and iron bones. Chapter 632. Nye Wuxiang was running for her life. She knew her luck had always been bad, but she didn't expect it to be this bad. After returning from the celestial pole, she concentrated on comprehending the primordial devil great technique. Just as she got some clues, she left the closed-door meditation to participate in the Devil Cultivators Trade Fair, but she was targeted by Demon Monarch Yuing. She didn't know how Demon Monarch Yuing learned about the existence of the primordial devil great technique, but it was absolutely impossible for her to hand it over. Therefore, she took advantage of his unpreparedness and ran away with her secret treasure. However, he was one of the three great devil monarchs in Yunzhong. How could the early stage compare with the late stage? She had no choice but to think about who could help her. She didn't know many people in Yunzhong, and the 1,000-mile sound-transmitting talisman couldn't travel across the whole continent. If she hadn't met Ling Yunhe by chance, she would have fled all the way back to the celestial pole. Even if she asked Ling Yunhe to help her, she didn't dare to have too much hope. She only had a little contact with him, so who knew whether he would really run for her or not. Fortunately, Jing Xingji was in Yunzhong and received her 1,000-mile sound-transmitting talisman. If he came smoothly, the two of them might have a chance if they worked together. Jing Xingji, why hasn't this bitch come yet? She had been running for half a month. In order to escape, she used most of her secret treasures. If she kept running, she might as well hand over the primordial devil great technique. That being said, Nie Wuxiang didn't slow down at all. She knew too well the terror of a late-stage nascent soul cultivator and didn't want to put her fate in someone else's hands again. This was the third time Ling Yunhe had taken a restorative panacea. His spiritual aura was gradually overflowing, and the watery moonlight was released again. The moonlight was clear and misty, but it carried a cold, killing intent. The sea beast swung its tail crazily. Its body was dripping with blood, dyeing the sea red. He took a moment to look at the other two people, feeling very puzzled. These two people hadn't taken anything like restorative panacea, so why did they still look full of spiritual aura? He didn't have much time to think. The sea beast went berserk, its strength soared, and its body was covered by aurora. Ling Yunhe retreated quickly. The moonlight sprinkled down, blocking the sea beast's attack. At the same time, a white-robed figure jumped into the sea beast's open mouth and disappeared between its sharp teeth. Ling Yunhe was startled. Just as he was about to say something, he caught a glimpse of Mo Chenga out of the corner of his eye. Only then did he realize that what he saw just now was her puppet, not her. Holding the Fuxing sword, the puppet was swallowed by the sea beast. Not long after, the sea beasts became even more berserk. For a moment, wind and waves surged and auroras flickered. The three of them controlled their respective Dharma treasures and retreated far away. Blood flowed out of the sea beast's mouth. Then a gleaming sword tip appeared on the sea beast's abdomen. Slash! The Fuxing sword flashed with lightning as it cut open the sea beast's abdomen. The sea beast writhed madly for a while before slowly calming down. Mo Chenga wiped her face, then retrieved the puppet and the Fuxing sword. I finally killed him. Qin's sword light flashed and went into the sea beast's huge head. Before long, he took out a colorful ball of light that looked like countless stars moving inside. Is this a beast core? Ling Yunhe nodded and said, this beast is not an ordinary beast. Its beast core contains magnetic force and tearing force. It cannot be consumed like an ordinary beast core. Qin nodded and looked at him inquiringly. Fellow Taoist Ling Yunhe waved his hand. Thanks to you guys we killed this beast. I don't want the beast core. He glanced at the sea beast and said, if possible, I want its hide. Qin smiled. Qin showed a slight smile. Please. The three of them skinned the sea beast and dismembered its body. Fellow Taoist Ling, before standing up again, Mo Chenga looked at Ling Yunhe with a smile and reached out her hand. My crystal jade. Ling Yunhe curled his lips at her appearance. Stingy. Although he said that, he still took out the crystal jade she put on the boat and gave it back to her. Although he said he was stingy, Ling Yunhe knew dozens of crystal jades could cause a chaotic battle between nascent soul cultivators. How could he give them away for free? She was already very generous when she was willing to give him the crystal jade. ******, a devil aura suddenly arrived, getting closer and closer to Nie Wuxiang. Nie Wuxiang didn't even dare to look back. In the past few days she encountered countless dangers. She knew Demon Lord Moonshadow had a tracking secret skill and would catch up to her from time to time. If she hadn't stolen many of her master's secret techniques, she would have been caught by him long ago. She raised her speed to the extreme, but the devil aura behind her was still getting closer. She was anxious. Why hasn't Jing Xingji come yet? When I use up all my secret treasures, it'll be useless for him to come. With that thought in mind, she suddenly felt a strong spiritual aura fluctuation in front of her. She was delighted. There was someone. No matter who it was, the situation couldn't be worse than it was now. Nie Wuxiang took out a jade talisman surrounded by devil aura and crushed it with one finger. Her speed suddenly sped up and she flew forward. Umph. In the devil aura behind her, a figure hidden in a black cloak suddenly approached her. Little girl, do you think you're the only one with a secret technique? The voice was low and dark, and it was hard to distinguish its original tone. Demon Lord Moonshadow was still as mysterious as usual. Nie Wuxiang kept flying and said, Senior chased me for so long without using a secret technique, so it must have cost you a lot, right? How did Senior know that this is the only secret technique I have? Then try again. Demon Lord Moonshadow said, and the refined corpse beside him suddenly flew toward Nie Wuxiang. Nie Wuxiang's body flashed, and a black jade pendant blocked the refined corpse's attack. Nie Wuxiang shook her sleeves, and a strand of primordial devil chi flew out. It turned into a ray of starlight and suddenly exploded, blocking Yuing Devil Monarch for a moment. Just in front, hold on for a while more. With that thought in mind, Nie Wuxiang crushed another demonic talisman. 3 people. Sensing each other's aura, they also flew toward her. Nie Wuxiang prayed in her heart, hoping that they were not enemies. 2 middle stage and 1 early stage. Not Mo Qingwei and the others. Nie Wuxiang was a little disappointed. She only hoped that they wouldn't make things difficult for her. Just as she was thinking about that, her primordial spirit suddenly sensed something, and the place it sensed was just in front of her. Nie Wuxiang was delighted. Were they the helpers Ling Yunhe found? Fortunately, there were 2 middle stage and 2 early stage, so there was still hope to deal with Demon Lord Moon Shadow. Nie Wuxiang rushed forward wildly. Demon Lord Moon Shadow sneered behind her. Do you think these few people can help you? You're too naive. They're coming. A black dot on the horizon was getting closer and closer, followed by 2 black clouds. Ling Yunhe's spirits rose. Mo Qingge saw Nie Wuxiang at first glance and went to meet her. When she saw the person in front of her clearly, Nie Wuxiang was overjoyed. Qingge. This was the first time she called her by her name. When they met, Mo Qingwei's name wasn't there yet, only Mo Qingge. Meeting again after a long time in a crisis, she instinctively called this name. Mo Qingge was stunned, then she smiled. Wuxiang. The 3 of them attacked Demon Lord Moon Shadow, who was behind Nie Wuxiang. She didn't hold back at all. He mobilized the Vermilion Bird's breath in his Yang spiritual bead and used the sword formation Vermilion Bird burns the heavens. Countless sword auras converged to form a vast and mighty sea, rushing toward Demon Lord Moon Shadow. Mo Qingge did the same. With a howl, an azure dragon appeared from the heaven and earth fan and spat out a golden thunderbolt, which turned into a golden curtain of rain and covered Demon Lord Moon Shadow. When the 2 of them used their full strength, the cautious Ling Yunhe was no longer strong enough. A crescent moon sprinkled down clear light to meet the refined corpse. Nie Wuxiang quickly retreated behind them, grabbed a handful of devil cores and swallowed them. The primordial devil aura on her body soared and turned into a huge black cloud. Humph, a few juniors. Demon Lord Moon Shadow waved his cloak, and the demonic aura in front of him surged. The refined corpse rushed toward Nie Wuxiang. The demonic aura met the sea of swords and the golden rain. Chi, chi, chi. It was just a soft sound, but it began to swallow each other. The demonic aura was strong, so it gained the upper hand at first. However, the sea of swords and the golden rain were more tenacious. They were extinguished a little, but they kept burning, forming a corner. When the sea of swords and the golden rain began to counterattack, Demon Lord Moon Shadow was shocked. His cultivation level was higher, and his magic art was more powerful, but he was strangely restrained. Whether it was the sea of swords or the golden rain, they both carried a vast and holy aura, which seemed to naturally restrain him. Demon Lord Moon Shadow couldn't help but think of the azure dragon that appeared just now. Could it be that these people practiced a cultivation technique that could restrain demonic arts? He didn't have much time to think. On the other side, she took out the Vermilion Bird bow. The Vermilion Bird's flame in the Yang spiritual bead surged out again. As he pulled the bowstring, a flame arrow was formed. The bow was like a full moon, and the arrow shot toward the heavenly wolf. She let go of the bow, and the Vermilion Bird arrow flew out, drawing a perfect arc and shooting toward Demon Lord Moon Shadow. Demon Lord Moon Shadow wanted to dodge, but he was trapped by the sea of swords and the golden rain. It was like he was in a quagmire. In this urgent situation, he used a secret technique and suddenly disappeared. It was still a soft sound, but this sound was much more powerful. Although Demon Lord Moon Shadow had teleported, he was still swept by the tailwind of the Vermilion Bird arrow, and a large mass of demonic aura was burned. Oh! He stared at the Vermilion Bird bow in Shi's hand, hatred in his heart. This was the Vermilion Bird bow that Jiyan sect had plotted for 100,000 years. It was indeed a spiritual magic weapon with a spirit. He knew he was defeated. His original body was blocked by these 2 juniors, and his refined corpse was blocked by Ling Yunhe and the others. He couldn't kill them. He unfolded his cloak, rolled up the refined corpse, and tried to escape. At this moment, a dazzling light suddenly burst out from his body. His sharp intent soared into the sky, and his killing intent was threatening. A sword cultivator's sword. Demon Lord Moon Shadow was terrified. It was fine if he was defeated by these juniors fair and square, but what was going on with this sword cultivator who suddenly appeared? He was a dignified late nascent soul cultivator, one of the 3 great devil monarchs in Yunzhong. Had he fallen to this point? Chapter 633. No one tried to stop Moon Shadow Devil Monarch, so he escaped easily. How could it be easy to stop a great nascent soul cultivator? If they weren't careful, he would defeat them one by one. That would be their own fault. Jing Xingji deliberately chased after her and shouted, "Senior, you have to walk carefully. Don't fall and die." Mo Chenga shook her head and said, "Are you bullying the old?" Jing Xingji smiled like a ruffian. "I've always liked to bully the old. I think you're beating a drowning dog." Nie Wuxiang gave him a dirty look. The dignified nascent soul demon monarch was classified as a drowning dog by her just like that. She was still wearing Tiansan's attire, but she didn't disguise her voice. Ling Yunhe frowned slightly. "Fellow Taoist Tiancan?" Nie Wuxiang took off her bamboo hat, revealing a delicate face. "Sorry, fellow Taoist Ling, my real name is Nie Wuxiang." Ling Yunhe looked at her real face and was a bit surprised. In the end he sighed. "What's wrong with a real or fake name? I only recognize you as fellow Taoist Qin Wei and fellow Taoist Tiancan." His words inexplicably made the two of them sad. Time flew. 100 years passed and they all entered the nascent soul realm. The carefree valley of the past still seemed like yesterday. Speaking of which, among the 6 people in the carefree valley, except for the 2 who died, the remaining 4 all formed their nascent souls. Recalling the past, they really felt emotional. The 5 of them stood facing each other. Jing Xingji, who was surrounded by sword aura as if he was in a sword formation, said, "You're actually in the middle stage? Why are you so surprised?" Jing Xingji glanced at Mo Tiange. How long has it been since Mo Qingwei formed her nascent soul? If she can reach the middle stage, why can't I? Nie Wuxiang finally noticed and was pleasantly surprised. "Tiange, you're in the middle stage." Mo Tiange nodded with a smile. "I advanced not long ago, so I obtained a great fated chance." Umph. Jing Xingji was extremely jealous. Every time they had a great fated chance, he always followed behind and picked up the scraps. Fortunately, White Tiger and the Sword Cave were both his. Otherwise he would be jealous to death. "Guys," Ling Yunhe said, "this isn't a place to talk. Let's go." 2 hours later, they were sitting in the cloud-soaring crane's ship, slowly heading towards the coast. "Yu Ying Devil Lord doesn't have any accomplices, right?" Jing Xingji asked as he walked around the ship. Nie Wuxiang said, "Isn't it too late for you to worry now?" "I've been worried for a long time, so I prepared for a while longer." Nie Wuxiang turned around and glared at him. "Aren't you afraid I won't be able to hold on until you guys arrive?" Jing Xingji grinned cheekily. "How could you die so easily? Look at your body, you can't die even if you want to, unlucky girl." Nie Wuxiang clenched her teeth. "Yeah, I'm not as awe-inspiring as you, sword, slut." Mo Chenga stared at them and smiled. This time, Nie Wuxiang was even more relaxed. She could call her by her name and joke around with Jing Xingji like this. Presumably, she'd completely broken away from Master Songfeng's shadow and obtained a new life. After chatting for a while, everyone began to reminisce about the past. Jing Xingji said he only came out after 15 years of closed-door meditation in the Sword Cave of Fengshi Valley to understand Wanderer Ziwei's sword intent. In the end, he said proudly that he wasn't afraid of Qin Shi anymore. Qin Shi just smiled. This time he could naturally see that Jing Xingji was different from before. Originally he was sharp and threatening, and his whole body was like an unsheathed sword. Now, his sword intent was completely restrained, but as long as he wanted, he could transform into a sword at any time. Wanderer Ziwei was indeed a genius sword cultivator. Not only did he have amazing achievements when he was alive, but he also kept all his knowledge in the Sword Cave after his death and passed it on. Jing Xingji kept saying that the big fated chances belonged to them, and he could only follow behind and pick up the leftovers. In fact, as a sword cultivator, neither the Yang spiritual bead nor the vermilion bird bow could compare to the Sword Cave of Ziwei. Moreover, he was recognized by the White Tiger bead before, which was something even Feifei couldn't do. As for Nie Wuxiang, after returning to Yunzhong, she entered closed-door meditation to participate in the Great Primordial Devil technique. Later, for some reason, Demon Monarch Yu Ying pestered her to hand over the Great Primordial Devil technique. When Nie Wuxiang finished talking about how she was pestered by Demon Monarch Yu Ying, she frowned slightly. Strange, how did he know about the existence of the Great Primordial Devil technique? "Yes, this is also something I can't figure out," Nie Wuxiang said, but no matter how I asked, he didn't reveal anything. Qin Shi tapped his knuckles and said, "Your devil aura is very profound and it can't be hidden at all." Now, Yunzhong and the Celestial Pole are in contact again, so what happened in the westernmost might be spread to Yunzhong. Did Demon Monarch Yu Ying know your Master Songfeng's disciple? Master Songfeng's cultivation of the great primordial devil technique wasn't a secret. Most of the high-level cultivators in the Celestial Pole knew about it, and the last time Master Songfeng appeared was in the westernmost area. Could it be Demon Monarch Yu Shuang? Jing Xingji said, among the people who came from Yunzhong last time, only she went back. Maybe she leaked Wuxiang's situation to Demon Monarch Yu Ying. Nie Wuxiang thought for a while then shook her head. I don't think so. Night Frost and Yu Ying are both nascent soul devil cultivators, and their strengths are almost the same. Demon Monarch Yu Ying wanted to steal the great primordial devil technique because he wanted to break through the late stage and advance into the deification realm. How could Demon Monarch Night Frost give such a good opportunity to others? The Demon Monarchs didn't get along very well. If it wasn't her, how could Demon Monarch Yu Ying know about the great primordial devil technique? Qin Shi said, the only person in Yunzhong who cultivated the great primordial devil technique was Mei Feng, the city lord of Descending Star City. He was killed by me in the Sea of Returning Ruins, and the matter about the primordial devil steel wasn't leaked. At this point, he suddenly paused. Yang Qingji. Mo Qianga slowly said this name. Guifang Demon Monarch knew about the primordial devil steel, so he secretly sneaked into the underground palace in the Sea of Returning Ruins. In the end, he failed at the last step, and the primordial devil steel was obtained by Yang Qingji. Nie Wuxiang was stunned. Guifang Demon Monarch died several decades ago, and Yang Qingji disappeared without a trace. I've never heard any news about him, Mo Qianga said. When we came out of the secret place in the Sea of Returning Ruins, we were separated from Yang Qingji. We don't know where he went. He couldn't have been caught by Demon Monarch Yu Ying, right? Nie Wuxiang raised a possibility, but after thinking about it, she denied it. That's not right. If he was caught, he wouldn't have needed to catch me. Everyone was silent and everyone was thinking. Everyone, Ling Yunhe suddenly said, if you want to find out the reason, can you wait until later? I didn't come here for this matter. Oh, sorry. Nie Wuxiang smiled apologetically. Fellow Taoist Ling, do you have any questions? Ling Yunhe said, fellow Taoist Tianqin, what about your promise? Nie Wuxiang said without hesitation, we'll fulfill it. We'll go now. Right. Mo Qianga asked, you asked fellow Taoist Ling to pass the message, the sacrificial temple has appeared. Come quickly. What does this have to do with the sacrificial temple? Nie Wuxiang pursed her lips and smiled. In fact, I said that on purpose to make you pay attention to it. Come quickly. Mo Qianga shook her head. If we knew you were in danger, we'd naturally come as soon as possible. Nie Wuxiang was stunned, but she felt warm in her heart. She said, but it's true. Before I met Demon Monarch Yu Ying, I came out of closed-door meditation to participate in the Devil Cultivators Trade Fair and got the news. This matter hasn't been spread out yet, but we'd better hurry up. Who knows when it'll be known by others? Mo Qianga nodded. The Black Tortoise Sacrificial Temple is still in Carefree Valley, right? How did you know? Nie Wuxiang was astonished. At that Devil Cultivators Trade Fair, I got in touch with a former elder of Starfall City and got some information from him. Only then did I find out that City Lord Mei obtained the primordial devil great art from Black Tortoise Sacrificial Temple. Therefore at that time he lured us core formation cultivators together and fed us to the primordial devils he created, helping him reach the heavens in a single bound. Unexpectedly, his plan failed and the primordial devil was swallowed by me. What happened in Starfall City could be said to have changed Nie Wuxiang's life. If they weren't trapped by Mei Feng and couldn't escape, Nie Wuxiang wouldn't have swallowed the primordial devil and turned into a real devil cultivator. Mo Qianga said, every dog has its day. The primordial devil steel in your hand now belongs to Mei Feng. I guessed it. Nie Wuxiang smiled and turned to look at everyone. How about it? Everyone, it won't be a problem to go to Carefree Valley right away, right? Qin Shi, Jing Xingji and Mo Qianga didn't need to ask. Only Ling Yunhe said, I'm ready for this trip. Nie Wuxiang smiled. That's good. But, Ling Yunhe said, since we've decided to go there immediately, can fellow Taoist Tian tell us what kind of place it is? Nie Wuxiang hesitated for a moment, not knowing what to say. Mo Qianga said, fellow Taoist Ling, you've also been to the Vermilion Bird Sacrificial Temple, so you should know about it. Ling Yunhe frowned. The Black Tortoise Sacrificial Temple you mentioned is the same place as the Vermilion Bird Sacrificial Temple? Correct. Mo Qianga nodded. Ling Yunhe pondered. There's the vermilion bird and the black tortoise. Could it be that there's also the azure dragon and the white tiger? No one answered. The matter about the sacrificial temple was not only a great fated chance, but it was also related to the secret of the great chaos in the world. How could Mo Chenga easily say it? If she went to the black tortoise sacrificial temple and got Ling Yunhe's fated chance, it could also be considered as repaying him for his help. Thinking up to this point, an idea came to her mind. The black tortoise's attribute was water. Among the four of them and their spiritual beasts, only she and Xiaofan had water spiritual roots. This fated chance wouldn't fall into Ling Yunhe's hands, right? By the way, fellow Taoist Ling, you said before that you knew about the destruction of heaven and earth. Can you tell me now? After these past few days, Ling Yunhe had completely calmed down. It was just that he'd been repressed for too long. Whether it was Juyin sect or Ling clan, they both made him extremely depressed. Now he also had a big secret suppressed in his heart, so his mood fluctuated. He didn't really want to do anything. In fact, even if Mo Chenga really did respond, he still had to think about it. Taoists advocated the natural way, and matters of the heart also happen naturally. Feelings that were snatched from others didn't have a good beginning, nor did they have a good ending. It was a hindrance to cultivation. Now that he heard Mo Chenga's question, he said, "This matter has to start from the immortal palace in the returning ruins sea." That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.